Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto and Kyubi talk to each other from childhood part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Deep within its cage, the Kyubi no Imp felt a stirring in the air. Cracking open one eye, it saw the shadows shift as his chakra began to shift when his container's form came into view. The blonde 16-year-old was walking forward in a slow meandering way, as if he was aimlessly walking. What do I owe this visit to? I sense no danger. Why has my idiot jailer decided to visit my humble abode? He growled out, moving his head on his paws to stare at the blonde. The teenage boy looked up at him and rolled his blue eyes. He walked closer to the bars, turned around and slumped to the ground, using them as a backrest. A loud sigh escaped his lips as he leaned his head back, making a slight banging noise against the cage. "Do me a favor," he started, catching the beast's attention. "Come up with a way that you can stop me from making any more promises." Flashback 3 years earlier, Uzumaki Naruto sat on the hotel futon and looked out the window at the newest village he and Jiraiya had stopped in last night. It had been 1 year since Sasuke had defected to Sound, and the training trip he and the Toad Hermit were on had begun to seem like a cross between the best and worst idea he ever agreed to. At first Naruto had been excited about the training trip. He had thought he would learn a tons of jutsus and maybe a kick-ass fighting style. Instead, he was learning the one thing that he didn't want to learn, and he didn't know how to tell Jiraiya that he didn't want this type of training. Kyubi looked up and then, with an almost human sign, asked, "Boy, what did you do now?" "I want to go strong on my own, not by using Kyubi's power. Hell, I know how to pull it, and the stronger I get the more I can pull." His thoughts trailed off. He sighed. "Why doesn't anyone think I can be strong without Kyubi?" Naruto knew he liked being out of the village. Kami helped him, he loved his village, but sometimes the strain of being the demon child grated. Being out of the village, where no one knew that those whisker marks were signs of possession, finally gave him the chance at a normal life. Yet here he was, still wearing Kill Me Now orange, still lacking knowledge on jutsus or any other shinobi skills, and still being seen as only the Kyubi vessel. Closing his eyes, Naruto decided to try meditating like Iro-san suggested. As he concentrated on his breathing, he felt a tug on his mind. Opening up his eyes, he found himself back in the solar system he liked to call his mind. Gee, if this doesn't tell you I need mental health care, I don't know what does. Walking towards the red, ominous chakra, he began to wonder why he was down here. Thought the hentai said, "I would only come here if I was in danger. Wonder if the seal is screwed up." "Boy." A voice growled out, "Come closer." Naruto looked towards the doors of the cage, glanced at the seal, and then raised one eyebrow before sarcastically saying, "Do you think I am stupid or something? Last time I came close the bars you tried to kill me." "Ah, last time I was trying to scare you. Unfortunately, if you die I die, and that holds true even here. Now come closer, we need to speak." Narrowing his eyes and moving closer, he saw the Kyubi resting on the ground, trying to appear harmless. "Fox team, what could we possibly want to talk about? I wish to know what you are trying to do to us." Kyubi growled out. In confusion, Naruto tilted his head to the side, much like a cat would when a human would try and ask it to do something. As if understanding Naruto's confusion, the Kyubi continued on. "You have been pulling on more and more of my chakra, you fool, and it is overstressing your chakra coils. If this continues you will damage them, beyond my ability to repair. Then we will be screwed beyond all belief." The last sentence was uttered with a slight growl of anger. Naruto continued to stare for a moment as he thought over those words and then started to chuckle. As Kyubi looked at him, his chuckle increased to a full-out laugh. Holding his sides, he fell to the ground in front of the cage. As he tried to calm himself, he could sense Kyubi's irritation. "Sorry, it's just that Jiraiya has been training me and he keeps working on pulling and using your chakra, and before you called me down here, I was thinking about how to tell him this is not the training I want." Naruto gasped out in between his laughs. "Then tell the fool I said to stop and it is taken care of. Explain he is causing damage to your chakra coils, which could have a negative effect on you or even the seal, which I am assuming he is the one who has been messing with it." Kyubi's tails moved behind him, almost like a dog wagging his tails, but it was tiring to watch the multiple tails swinging in opposite directions. "Although the adjustment he has made to the seal has been quite beneficial to me. Now I can see your memories and occasionally sense what you do in the outside world. It has given me great amusement." Naruto looked up at him, not sure he liked the idea of a great evil sadistic demon rooting through his memories to stave off boredom. "Not to mention, he has weakened the seal so that I may even find a way to escape from your pathetic body, but even that is still years away, and I have no intention of dying before then. It seems you have too many enemies for you to not be able to access your own, or even my chakra." Kyubi finished. Oh, that will go over well, I can see it now. Naruto changed his expression as he began to speak. Jiraiya, the big dad demon in my stomach, asked that we stop taking his chakra. It seems it might kill me. What evidence? I only have the big evil demon sealed in me telling me that it is destroying my chakra coils. Well yeah, I guess he could just be lying, I see. Well, I guess we keep going with your great training, sensei. Naruto's face gave off a rather vicious grin. That will go over well, don't you think? He asked cynically. Kyubi looked at the boy in front of him. He hated to admit it, but the boy was right. Closing his eyes to collect his thoughts and think back to what he had seen in the boy's memories of his new sensei, he thought on what to do. Then we will have to demonstrate why using my chakra would be bad. He stated finally. Curiosity piqued, Naruto looked at the Kyubi questionably, as if to say, and how do we do that? This will not be kind or easy, boy, but the best thing to do would be to push so much chakra into you that you lose control. The damage your rampage would cause would make him back off, without question. Rampage, you mean let you have control? Never. Naruto shouted back. Be quiet. Kyubi roared. I did not say that I would be in control. If you were overwhelmed beyond your pathetic body's tolerance of my chakra, your conscious mind would shut down, and your subconscious would be in control. And as much as it galls me to say this, you have buried into the depths of your mind every negative memory and emotion you have ever felt. Kyubi eyed the boy closely. Even I find it quite daunting how much pain and anger you have buried inside you. You will attack. Since it will be the first time you have that much chakra in you, it will not last for long. When you come through, he should be sufficiently cowed into stopping this ridiculous training and start teaching what you should have been taught all along. Naruto thought about it and then looked at Kyubi. He wasn't sure if he wanted to trust the Kyubi, but instinct and past memories told him one thing. The demon feared dying and wanted in no way to risk death. If you do anything to hurt anyone, I will find a way to make you pay. He uttered calmly, staring at the fox. He waited and finally the fox nodded to him. He could see it in the beast's eyes. They had a deal. 2 weeks later, Naruto looked around him at the destruction. Jiraiya had finally fallen asleep, bandaged and filled to the brim with painkillers. It had taken a while before Jiraiya had found a quiet near empty place to try training again, and once he had the plan Kyubi had come with had been put into action. But the damage. Going back into the shelter he had made for the two of them, Naruto sat down to meditate and sought the Kyubi in his mind. As he came to stand before the cage, Naruto looked at the relaxed demon. The damage, I know you weren't in control because you were here in my mind with me, but is that really what I am capable of? He asked quietly. Unsure if it was the tone of his voice or if in a way he had grown fond of the brat, Kyubi as gently as possible answered. All the hate, anger and pain you have felt all your life has never been addressed. You have buried it deep inside yourself, and when your subconscious took control, all those memories and emotions come boiling to the surface. I understand why you created the happy smiling mask, but it is doing as much harm as good. Understand, most demons did not start as such. They were once human, spirits, even gods, but when darker emotions build up, Kyubi shook its head, anything can become a monster. Be at ease, for you hurt very few people, as that foolish old man protected them. Hopefully now, he will focus on training you and your power, instead of forcing you to use mine. Kyubi stopped and looked away for a minute, then continued on in the same soft tone of voice that one would use to speak to a child in need of understanding. When you use my chakra, which is filled with hate and rage in it, you increase that damage. Your potential is quite high, and with us working together rather than against each other, the damage is dangerous. Quietly Naruto spoke. Potential, all I have ever been told is that my power was dependent on you, that I needed you to be strong. Foolish, you are of shinobi descent. I can see it in you, bodies built in chakra coil pathways, and generations of shinobi create marks in the body that I see in yours. You chakra coils have altered to allow you to use my own chakra, but your own personal reserves without my interference would have been quite high had I never been sealed in you. If anything, I am what holds you back. Your strength and mind conflict. My chakra that seeps in very small amounts into your body disrupts your control and impedes your progress. The seal itself also slows your thought progress and drains portions of your chakra to maintain itself. If the fools cannot see your potential, then find another teacher who can. Unsure how to react, Naruto nodded and thought on what he said. Suddenly, remembering something the demon had said, he looked up with narrowed eyes. You said that all demons were one something else, does that include the Bijus? Kyubi looked at the boy, in some ways glad to see the boy had caught what most would have ignored, in others wishing this had not been brought up. Ah. He said silently, we 9 Biju were one something else, gods, spirits, avatars. The darkness in us changed us, and what we were once, made us the tailed beast. But that is another story, perhaps one day I will tell you, perhaps not. Suddenly the Kyubi flexed his claws, but I have had enough talk today, leave. But that Naruto suddenly felt like he was falling upward and opened his eyes back in his body and not his mind. When he awoke, Jiraiya agreed that it was time to stop working with Kyubi as it was too dangerous to continue. From that day forth he worked with Naruto to train him without Kyubi. As months turned into a year, Jiraiya came to realize himself what Kyubi had told Naruto, and he began to see that the boy could become strong on his own, and that Kyubi's chakra would be a last defense, not his main strength. Once when drunk from a night out, he told Naruto that he should have done this from the beginning, as the boy had more potential than was readily available, and a will of fire to learn that he had only seen once before. But what Jiraiya did not know was that simple conversation that Naruto had with Kyubi changed a boy and his prisoner's relationship forever. The lonely boy had finally found a friend, a confidant, and an adult figure which did not lie, did not see a reminder of someone they once lost, or the mask that he had created to protect himself all those years ago. More importantly, it was a companion who could never leave. Naruto, age 16. Kyubi looked up and then, with an almost human sign, asked, "Boy, what did you do now?" "I made another promise." Of course, Naruto banged his head for a second time against the cage. "Although this may be a promise I might want to keep, it is one that I doubt I can. And I made it without thinking." Boy, Kyubi growled in frustration. Then stating it as fast as possible, "I promised to Priestess, Shion, that I would help her continue the Priestess line. According to Kakashi-sensei, I basically agreed to father them." Kyubi stared at his container and blinked. "You know, I wonder if you have damage to your brain I missed from all the hits to the head you took over the years. No one can be that oblivious, can they?" Kyubi mumbled to himself. Naruto tried to suppress the urge to strike out as he heard another snicker behind him. Ever since they had completed the mission to return the Priestess Shion to Demon Country, he had been getting nothing but snickers, whistles, catcalls and snide comments about how Shion had basically asked him to be the father of the next generation of priestesses. A small part of him yearned to scream out, "What, is it so hard to believe someone may want me?" But he knew that most of their humor in the situation was in the fact that he had agreed by accident, promising to help Shion continue her line without paying attention, and that it was Kakashi-sensei that had explained to him what Shion had really wanted. A part of him was tempted to stay with her, to stop chasing Sasuke, trying to accomplish all the goals he had set over the years, and see if a relationship with Shion would be possible. Shion had led a life of isolation and loneliness like himself, a barrier between the village and herself, due to the power inside her just as he did. She was also, as Kiba had joked, quite beautiful, and once you got past her arrogance, she was a sweet, kind and funny person to talk to. Yet, he was a shinobi of Fire Country, and she a priestess of Demon. Although others might have been able to have a relationship even though they came from different countries, he was the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi and knew he would never be permitted to leave permanently. He was tied to his village forever. It had hurt to explain to Shion that they could never be together, but with Kyubi's aid, he had been able to turn her down, although she had made him promise to visit her and keep in touch, and perhaps one day. What had surprised him the most is that when he explained why he could not stay with her, she had not turned away, instead hugging him. Shion had explained that her powers were tied to a demon, perhaps even making her Hanyu, half-breed. How could she hate him for also having a tie to a demon? She had even convinced him to go on at least one date, and he had to admit it was fun. Now if only Sakura would stop muttering. Opening his door, he moved to the fridge to pull out food for dinner. He had just finished training with Kakashi for the week and needed some time away from his teammates. It was trying to work with Kakashi's giggling, Sakura muttering, and Sai, well, Sai was the least of his problems. Kakashi was still having a riot over what happened, and Naruto knew that he was planning to spill it all to Jiraiya, which of course would lead to trouble. So help Jiraiya if he and Shion wound up being characters in the next Ichi. Sakura. Well, who knew what her problem was? She wished to have nothing to do with him except as a friend. True, she now treated him more as an annoying brother, but the idea that he might like another girl seemed to, well, piss her off. "I think it's time to meditate," he muttered, eating his onigiri left over from breakfast. He had been avoiding talking with Kyubi ever since he got back, almost afraid of the ribbing he knew the beast would give him. But hopefully Kyubi wouldn't be as bad as others were. He still remembered when Kyubi had searched through his memories to find out what had happened, as Naruto had not wanted to talk about it. Flashback. "Ah, I believe I have found where she decided you would make an excellent mate, and I must say," and Kyubi's voice held mirth, "it is definitely your fault." And flashback. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked with resignation in his voice. He turned to look at the images that Kyubi was watching, yet again, his own memories from when he and Shion had been traveling together. He saw the moment when they had stopped to rest by the river after they had escaped by jumping in, and it had just been the two of them. He watched as he threw water on his face and took off his hit aid. He was talking to Shion with his face half turned to her. Kyubi laughed and froze the image. Moonlight bounced off of the image of Naruto's head. His blonde hair was frozen in motion and water glistened off his face. One eye was turned to look at Shion. Perhaps it was a bit of ego, but he had to admit he looked good at that moment. That is the moment. If you look at her face, she is thinking some impure thoughts about you at that moment. Then afterwards you went and believed in her, encouraged her, and protected her. Yep, this was your own entire fault. Not like that time the old pervert bought you that set of clothes that had you almost wrapped by fangirls, this was all you. Kyuubi's laughter echoed through the room. Great, now I feel so much better as I am mocked by my friends and have Sakura angry at me for, well I have no idea what, he muttered walking closer to the cage. That is easy boy, she is jealous, she has always had your attention, at least in her eyes, and although she thinks of you as a brother, she is not ready to have you looking at others, Kyuubi grinned. A very common occurrence with females of any species. Naruto groaned, don't you have something better to do than watch my memories? Silence, and not the good kind, but what the hell else am I supposed to do here? Kyuubi growled out. Realizing what he said, Naruto faded from his mindset. Thinking back on the whole conversation and how it ended, Naruto began to wonder if those blonde jokes Jiraiya used to tell had some basis in truth for him. He did tend to make the stupidest statements at the wrong time, and sometimes the most obvious situations fell under his radar. Sighing he went and settled himself on his bed and then closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing. Finding himself in the seal he began to walk towards the room Kyuubi lived in. Bracing himself, he walked in, unsure of his reception. Hopefully Kyuubi would be in a good mood and not annoyed with him for his stupid remarks. Why has it taken you so long to come back to speak to me boy? It's been almost a full month. Kyuubi's voice came to him patiently. Naruto looked up confused. Kyuubi was resting on the floor, his head resting peacefully on his paws. You're not mad? He asked in a high-pitched squeal. Mad, about what? Oh, you mean that little spat. Boy, how often do we have to have this same discussion? I am not going to get mad at you for being angry that I watch your memories, as it is understandable. But at this point, I have no other form of entertainment except when you visit. As it is, unfortunately that can only be here at times. We are stuck with each other boy, and as long as we are, I am used to the fact you often speak when agitated without thinking, in a way I find it almost cute, much like a child that has not learned how to interact correctly. Naruto nodded his head. Although most would find it odd that he would worry if a demon sealed into him was angry at him, Naruto over the past few years had become dependent on these conversations. Talking to Kyuubi had eased a loneliness that no one else, not even Sasuke, had been able to ease. Kyuubi saw him as Naruto, and even though he had no one else to talk to, Kyuubi chose to talk to him as Naruto to Kyuubi, not as human to demon or jailer to prisoner. Now, if that is all done with, I believe I have come up with an idea. Kyuubi stated, raising his head slightly, giving off a smug grin. What type of idea? Naruto asked curiously, moving to sit on the ground in front of the seal. Well, I believe we can create a link between me down here in the seal and you when you're outside of the seal. There will be ups and downs to this, but if it works, I won't need to spend time in your memories, as I will be seeing and hearing what happens at any time. As for your request to prevent you from doing anything else stupid, well you would hear my voice in your head, and I can stop you before you speak. Kyuubi's grin was overwhelming the blonde. Unlike what his reaction would have been in the outside world, Naruto took a moment to think. On one hand he would not need to go into his mind to get advice, on the other Kyuubi's sarcastic remarks would be in his head all the time. He would be able to hear advice when needed, but if the village found out, to answer questions that must be swimming in your mind, no this should not to my knowledge harm the seal, in fact to my annoyance, it may strengthen the tie between us, but I am willing to risk that to be able to see and hear the outside world. I will not hear your thoughts unless you direct them to me, and vice versa, so you will have privacy still, although even now I can hear strong thoughts and emotions when they happen. The only way the villagers or council could find out is if you talked aloud to me, but we can do this in stages, so you will have time to become used to it. Kyuubi could see Naruto thinking hard on this. This falls in line with the agreement we came to years ago, correct? Naruto asked quietly. Kyuubi looked at the boy and sighed. I told you then, and I say it again now, I cannot go back on a promise, what we agreed to back then, will hold. My word on it, and I have never gone back on my word, hence why I so rarely give it. The two looked at each other, and the silence, except for an occasional drip of water, reigned in the room. Tell me more, Naruto spoke, leaning forward, resting one hand on his chin, the elbow on his knee. Kyuubi began to explain how the process would be done at 3 parts. First they would create a link between Naruto's ears and the seal, allowing Kyuubi to hear what was happening in the outside world. The connection could be opened by either of them by the application of chakra. It would take a few days to go in effect. This would have a side effect in that when the connection was opened, Naruto's hearing would be advanced, but no more than a wild fox's would be. Which would not be that different than some shinobi clans were able to. After it goes into effect, it would take a while for Naruto and Kyuubi, both to make it so that Naruto would not be affected by the sudden increase in sensory perception. As soon as Naruto and Kyuubi were both able to open and close the connection without any adverse effects, they would then make a similar connection between the seal and Naruto's eyes. This would actually have a double effect, one in which Kyubi could either see what happens outside, much as he watched Naruto's memories, or he would be able to see from Naruto's eyes when he opened the connection. This way he can have a slight view or a full view depending on the situation. Just as with his sense of sound, his eyes would have a heightened awareness. Once this was working properly, they would then create a second link between Naruto's cognitive thought process and the seal, allowing for Naruto to hear when Kyubi spoke to him. This would have to be handled delicately so as to prevent the thought process of Naruto to not be influenced by Kyubi. Once this is in place, they would be able to communicate at any time by opening that connection, yet again by use of either of their chakras. Kyubi watched as Naruto's face went through a multitude of expressions as he weighed the pros and cons of doing this. He knew that the boy would be taking a huge risk and step and trust to connect parts of his mind and senses to a demon that his entire village despised. If we do this, we might as well add another step, Naruto finally stated calmly. Oh? And what might that be? Might as well add sense of smell, I mean, you must miss smelling something besides the damp stagnant air here in the seal. Nah? Naruto asked, a small smile on his face. He watched in amusement as Kyubi, for the first time in a while, looked confused and stumped. Then he could see it, a small flash of pure joy. Yes, that would be nice. Kyubi mumbled softly. Well, then, let's start with the first step. Naruto stood up and walked closer to the seal. You truly astonish me sometimes, boy, why are you agreeing? Naruto squinted up at Kyubi, feeling his heated breath on his face. Trust was earned between us when we started messing with Akatsuki together. I mean, we messed with Itachi together, not to mention Sasuke, and that required a lot more trust. Also, it might help if I had you to stop me before I made these damn promises to people, which is what I asked for in the first place. Naruto smirked, besides I always knew you were a voyeur, and I rather you were able to give me advice at the moment than to tell me later after watching my memory of what I could have done. Maybe I might get lucky. Though I would appreciate it if you don't give me perverted advice like Hiro-san does. Kyubi's laughter echoed through the cage. Uchiha Itachi walked calmly through the forest, his blank expression holding none of the concern that ran through his mind. He and Kisame had separated for a few weeks to take care of individual business. Itachi himself had heard that Yadame's legacy had been seen in these parts, and he was curious to check on the boy's progress. The boy had potential, but it had been ignored before being taken in by Jiraiya. Itachi could only wonder how the council could not see the potential of the boy, more importantly, how they could allow foolish fears to cause them to hamper his growth. And in his eyes, hamper the boy they had. The child had massive chakra and from birth, if they wished him to be shinobi, should have been trained to utilize it and other abilities granted by the fox and his heritage. Yet for some reason the boy had been left alone, and by the time he was in the academy, his chakra had become too strong and his reserves too great for the basic education provided. Let alone the different nature of the boy's human chakra and the Kyuubi's demonic chakra that had affected the boy on many levels. Jiraiya may be a fool, but the man was a good teacher, as seen by his students, one of which became the Yadame. If anyone could correct the mistakes and bring the boy to the level he should have been at or at least close, it would be the Toad Sage. Then again, from what his spies had told him, the man had a tendency to leave the boy alone for days at a time. This, if true, would also be beneficial to Itachi, as he would be able to spy on the boy. Moving into the trees and placing a camouflage jutsu on himself, he moved silently towards the clearing that he felt the boy's chakra emanating from. Silently making his way to a decent vantage point, he watched as the boy appeared to be reading scrolls. Activating his Sharingan, he tried to decipher what the boy was reading, and one eyebrow rose in astonishment. Jutsu, he thought to himself, and not low level. It appears as if Jiraiya-sama is teaching the boy advanced seals. I wonder why. Perhaps to aid him in case his own seal starts to decay. Itachi continued to watch as the once energetic boy, who had appeared as if he couldn't sit still if he tried as a child, patiently sat and read for hours. The calmness alone made Itachi feel that the boy had grown in skill, for he himself knew that people with natural high chakra levels tended to be, for lack of a better word, twitchy. He himself, gifted with a high chakra level from birth, had been forced to learn calm by his clan, but to this day still had a nervous twitch in the form of his Pocky addiction. The only child who he had seen that was naturally calm was the Shukaku vessel, and that, Itachi believed, only because the boy had a lethargic personality due to lack of sleep. Suddenly his eyes sharpened as Naruto-kun finally seemed to move. He watched as the boy stood, stretched and put the scrolls away. Well, time to meditate and work on my mindscape, Naruto muttered, just loud enough for the Uchiha hidden in the trees to hear. Even more curious, he watched as the boy settled on a wide tree stump and went into a meditative stance. His eyes remained open. Itachi was very curious now. The boy had spoken of his mindscape and his meditative state was different from most, as his eyes were open but unseeing. To his knowledge, those who used mindscapes were Jinjutsu experts or those with abilities like the Tsukumoni. It had been discussed that if vessels were able to speak to their prisoners in life or death situations, they would meet in a form of mindscape. Was it possible the boy was communicating with the beast sealed within him? This led Itachi to debate within himself on whether to risk peeking into the boy's mind to see what was happening within. He was positive that if discovered he should be able to erase the boy's mind that he had been in. Mind made up, Itachi jumped from the branches into the camp. He made his way silently forward and squatted down so his eyes were level with the meditating boy. Activating his Sharingan, he felt his mind moved into the boy's. Curious, he muttered looking around at the strange mindscape he found himself. Recognizing the solar system of Konoha, he wondered if perhaps he should be concerned for the child's sanity, as this could not be a sign of a healthy mind. He knew the boy hid pain behind the happy mask he portrayed, but this was disconcerting. He felt a malevolent feel up ahead, and following the pipes in the wall and the feel of chakra in the air, he made his way forth. Eventually he started to hear sounds of arguing and Itachi stopped for a moment, tilting his head to the side. Laughter. Squealing of a child. Something was off. Moving forward with his eyes narrowed, he heard more definition to the words being spoken. Listening to the sounds of Naruto-kun's voice arguing with a growling deeper voice that sent shivers of fear down his spine, he carefully placed himself to look into a room that red clouds of mist like chakra flowed from. He was not expecting what he saw, never in a million years. Unable to process what he was witnessing, he started focusing on the smaller details. He noticed that the room was quite large and the opposite wall contained a huge gate structure. At the center of the gate was a small piece of paper, decaying with age, with the kanji seal on it. Along the walls leading to the giant gates were pipes twisting around each other and the sound of dripping water echoed in the air underneath the sound of the arguing going on in front of the cage. At the inside of the cage lay the Kyubi, a huge figure, much as he remembered from his nightmares as a child, tail swooping in the air behind it. Up close the Kyubi was even more frightening than when he had first seen it as a child of 5 years, when it had attacked Konoha. The Kyubi's claw was poking through the bars of the cage, and one tail was wrapped around the boy who was kneeling on the floor in front of the gates, his head being held underwater by the beast's tail. He watched as the boy's head once again was let up to take a breath, and he focused on the words the Kyubi was uttering in that chilling voice. "Are you going to cry, uncle, yet? Well boy, are you willing to admit you are my bitch and serve any purpose I demand? Say it. Say you're my bitch. Yes, just stop, I'm your bitch." Naruto-kun's voice rang out through the air. He was gasping the words out while trying to breath and was he trying to control laughter? Itachi slowly inched back. Of the entire things he could have predicted he would see this was just wrong. This, the beast Itachi thought shut down. He kept backing away unable to process what he saw. When a loud bang sounded in the air and a high-pitched whine echoed down the hall. Taking a deep breath, Itachi moved back in to see what was happening and to confirm that he had not just imagined the interaction he just witnessed. What he saw next shocked him even more. Naruto-kun was now standing in between two of the bars of the cage, holding the Kyubi's tail that had bound around the bar in front of the boy. The Kyubi was uttering low-pitched whines much like a dog whose tail was caught. "Now who's the bitch?" The boy's voice was vibrant in his apparent battle victory. "Come on, say my name, bitch. Naruto. Now let my tail go, you be." "What did you say?" "Beg like the good bitch you are." Itachi came to a start as he was thrown from the mindscape by his own need to escape. Staring at the boy in front of him, he finally stood turned and walked out of the camp, his eyes blind and mind blank, unable to accept what he saw. Back in the seal, Kyubi was licking his tail as he kept one eye on the boy who was leaning against his cage doors. "Nah, Kyubi. You think we went too far?" Naruto asked in a soft tone. "Ah, demon here. Might not be the right one to ask, boy," Kyubi replied, "but did you have to pull my tail so hard? Did I have to pull it so hard? Please, I thought my lungs were gonna burst from being held under the water. But seriously, you think it was wise to mess with Itachi like that?" Kyubi sighed. "Boy, we both agreed, something is off on the whole Uchiha massacre, and something is off on his attitude around you, for a supposed cold-blooded kin slayer. You said the feeling you were getting when he was watching you was of curiosity, respect and worry, which doesn't add up to what you know about him. This way, when you next meet Akutsuki, if they are cautious of you, for they feel you might be working with me, and then we know he is a traitor, if they act as if they have no fear of you, then we know the older Uchiha boy is up to something. I guess, but still the way he hightailed it out of here, I think we may have broken him." Naruto answered. Uncaring if they did sever mental damage, Kyubi looked curiously at the boy. "So was it everything I said it was?" A large fox-like grin appeared on Naruto's face. "Oh, yeah. I am so going to use that again," he laughed. "You were definitely right, you have to use the phrase say my name bitch at least once in your life." It was awesome. Kyubi and the boy snickered at each other. Well, I have to go, Iro Sennin is due back tonight and I need to hide the higher level scrolls I have been working on and put together a meal. Kyubi grinned back at the boy as he faded out of the mindscape. Kami, I love that kid's sense of humor. It makes a kitsune proud, he muttered to himself, pleased with the day's event, a small evil chuckle emitting from his as he remembered the look on the Uchiha's face. 1 week later at a sake bar in Cloud, Kisum was extremely worried. Why was he worried, you ask? It had taken him 3 days to locate Itachi, as he had not been at their appointed meeting place. As Kisum knew the Uchiha hated delays, he had become concerned and started to search the boy out. Only to find him here, at the sake bar, drinking. Not to mention a large quantity of empty pokeboxes sat next to the boy. Itachi-san, did anything happen while we were separated? Kisum asked, slowly sitting down across from the half-drunk Uchiha. Kisum began to worry even more as the Uchiha continued to stare at him, munching on a pocky stick. Suddenly he tensed as the Uchiha picked up his sake glass, shot down the drink and stood. I assume you are ready to leave? The boy asked with a slight slur to his voice. Standing as well, Kisum nodded his head, watching the boy much like one would watch a rabid animal. Unsure to what the boy would do. Then we should go. Itachi slowly walked out of the bar with the careful walk of a man who was trying to hide the fact he is completely wasted. And he is talking also. Kisum began to recount the past events he had just witnessed, wondering if the apocalypse was beginning. After a few days, and Itachi finally acting like his usual cold stoic self, Kisum was still worried. The behavior he had seen was off, odd and the type you would expect from a man coming back from a traumatizing mission. But for a man like Uchiha, who had slaughtered his entire clan, what could have done this to him? Kisum? A voice interrupted his thought. Yes, Itachi-san? He asked calmly. A short while later, Itachi continued, have you ever used the phrase say my name bitch? He asked calmly, with no inflection in his voice. Okay, now Kisum was truly freaked out. Present time, the Kyubi seal. Naruto's sleepy form walked through the water of the seal to see what Kyubi was watching, seeing Itachi's face being replayed again and again as he backed away from the event he witnessed. Naruto smirked. You never get bored with that, do you? He asked. Considering my feelings about Uchihas. Kyubi replied, no, don't think I ever will. Enjoying the replay himself, Naruto sat down and yawned. So you think we are ready to give you visual now? As the changes to allow for sound connection appeared to have worked, we should move on to step 2. Kyubi looked away from the image of Itachi's blank shell shocked face. I'd love to. He started to let the image of Itachi fade so that he and the boy could begin altering the seal. Stop, leave it up. It will put a smile on my face all day to enjoy that prank again. Naruto said as he reached up to the seal tag in front of him. Boy, I am so proud of you at this moment, Kyubi said with a sadistic chuckle. Kyubi watched as Naruto made the few alterations to complete the change to the seal. The boy did good work, as far as the kitsune was concerned. Although he personally hated seals, seeing as one had trapped him and the boy, he knew for a shinobi, the brat's skill was beneficial. That should do it, Naruto stated, dropping his arms and moving away. I think we are ready to give this a try. I am only going to activate the first stage of the changes. If it works well, we can then move forward. Now the first part is basically allowing you to tap into the connection between my eyes and my brain. That way, just as the sight is being seen and heads to be recorded into memory, a copy will appear down here for you to view. As the connection between my sight and brain is 1 second transmits, you will only be a 1/2 second behind. This really shouldn't be a problem. Sound right? Kyubi grinned at the boy, my what an intelligent answer, I hardly recognize you in comparison of that idiot brat who came to demand my chakra all those years ago. Kyubi joked. He watched as the boy gave a soft smile and he could see the slightest of blushes. Even after all these years his young vessel was not able to take kindness or compliments easily. Although, in Kyubi's eyes, his growth was owed as equally to him as to that sensei of his years of neglect had left a mark that may never leave. The old toad had worked on educating the boy but had not seen the emotional damage in him, as such Kyubi had worked to heal some of the wounds. Gee well once I activate it, you will have to work on testing how to stabilize the connection with your chakra. I think in about 2 to 3 days we can activate the rest of the seal. This is what has me worried. Kyubi tilted his head. Why? Naruto sat on the floor and looked up at Kyubi yawning slightly. Well for you to view through my eyes, or if you see something I don't and try to focus my eyes, or should I say, your eyes on it, your chakra will be flowing in the coils and tenketsus around my eyes. Normally when your chakra is present, in small doses my eyes change from human eyes to slits like your own. If enough of your chakra is present, my eyes turn red to match yours. Kyubi closed his eyes. Hence someone might sense the chakra, wonder if I am breaking free, or fear I am taking you over. Yep. Naruto gave a wide grin. So I figured that if this works well, and you get it working quickly, we will activate the second part of the seal in 2 pieces. First you being able to see through my eyes and then you being able, control what I see. That way we can watch the chakra flow and stop halfway if needed. My ears were easy, in that we could hide it to seem as if I was simply enhancing my hearing, my eyes, well that can be seen if your chakra becomes noticeable. Brilliant, Kyubi wagged his tails. Then we can either set up scent or the mind connection. Kyubi pondered a bit, scent would be better as the mind connection will be the trickiest of all to set up. Scent will only be hard in learning for you on how to handle the enhanced sense of smell. Standing up and stretching. Well then, here goes nothing. Kyubi stilled as he watched Naruto approach the seal. He placed his hand on one spot and chakra flowed into the seal. Then he stepped back and smiled. Is it active? Hi, you won't be able to see though as my eyes are closed right now. I am going to wake up now. Send a tug to my chakra if something is wrong on this side, otherwise I will check in tonight. Kyubi watched the boy fade out. This would be new. Kyubi watched the images in front of him. For the first few hours, waiting to see if Kyubi contacted him, the boy had stayed in his apartment. Kyubi had instantly activated the connection with chakra and waited for his first image to appear. The first image was of the ceiling of Naruto's apartment. Waiting for something better to work with, he started to see images of the apartment as Naruto looked around. As the boy went about his morning activities, Kyubi worked on focusing the image to better clarify. Now he looked at a clear image that folded along the walls outside the cage, creating a view of an open window. He saw the images of the village he had once deigned to destroy and the people among it. He found it odd that the boy could travel through these streets and was seemingly ignored by everyone around. For such an energetic kid, when he walked quietly through the streets in casual clothes, no orange in view, he was ignored. Not from the villagers' disdain, but purely because they did not see him as they tended to view the boy as only loud. The excitement of this had worn off easily. As the great Bijuu that he was, and chakra manipulation his own specialty, he had mastered opening the connection, closing the connection and focusing the images quite easily. It was already second nature. And nothing was happening out there. Oh, the joy of seeing the world for the first time in years was thrilling, but for all the trouble this kid usually got into without trying, boring. He tried to calm himself and taking a deep breath, he just focused on the joy of seeing the world. What was that? He muttered to himself. For a second, he thought he had seen long dark purple hair and wide eyes flash out of the corner to look at Naruto. Was that the shy girl? Something that he always says faints when he is around. Shaking his head, he went back to watching the village. Currently Naruto appeared to be heading towards the worn path to the top of Hokage Mountain. He knew it was the boy's favorite place. Something about it being the best view around. Hate to say it, but the boy is right. From up here the village looks peaceful and kind, and the sky endless. He said to himself, admiring the view. A nice clear view of the sky, trees, and rocks. A truly soothing view. He could get used to looking at this at any time. Perhaps the boy would stay to watch the sunset. It would be truly marvelous to watch. There it is again. Kyubi exclaimed. He stood up behind the cage as he caught the flicker out of Naruto's view of long purple hair and wide eyes. A quick flick at the edge of his vision that Kyubi was sure Naruto had never noticed. Since what went into Naruto's memories faded out, what he didn't notice, Kyubi had never noted it before. Is that girl stalking him? He uttered in confusion. What was this? He settled down again to think over this information as Naruto watched the sunset. Kyubi could only half enjoy the view of his first sunset in 16 years, and a magnificent one it was. After the sunset, Naruto began walking again into the village and Kyubi pondered what that girl was up to. From what he remembered from Naruto talking about his friends in the village, the girl was the heiress of the most powerful clan in the village. She could have been set to watch Naruto as they might fear him. Wait, no, the girl's cousin, the fake boy. Naruto had fought him in that Chunin exam. He called the girl weak and unwanted by her family. Curious, why was she watching? A mystery, I do so love a mystery. Kyubi murmured, his tail swing with his uplifted mood. Boy, Naruto. Kyubi looked out at the scene before him to see Naruto focusing on another boy running towards him, a large dog running alongside him. Ah. The dog boy. Finally a conversation to listen on. Hey Kiba, when did you get back? Naruto called back. This morning, so what have you been up to? Kiba asked, coming to a stop in front of Naruto. Akimaru moved forward to nuzzle at Naruto in welcome. Just relaxing today, Kakashi-sensei said we can start training in a few days, but that I had to at least rest today. Naruto knelt down to greet the large non-dog. Well, Kyubi spoke, it appears these nins have connections to nin animals that form chakra bonds with them. That could be useful. So, then are you up for a spar tomorrow? Kiba asked, his face set in a wide grin. Sure, if you want to get your ass kicked, Naruto responded back. Great. Tomorrow training field 32. Kiba waved as Naruto walked off with a wave acknowledging him. Out of the corner of Naruto's eye, Kyubi watched as the dog boy headed off to a side street. Yes, there she is again. the girl with purple hair. Focusing Naruto's ears and sending a small amount of chakra to it so he could hear the words of the two conversing. "Boy Hinata, tell me you're not spying on Naruto again." Kiba's voice held a tint of humor. "Hiba-kun, I just wanted to see if he was okay." The girl's soft voice stuttered out. "Hinata, just tell him, I doubt Naruto even realizes you like him." Kiba's voice held humor and resignation. "It has to be better than following him around, you tell him and he accepts you or you move on because he turns you down." I couldn't do that." Hinata's voice faded out as Naruto seemed to move faster to get home. Well, what do you know? The shy girl has a crush and is stalking him. Now what to advise him about this? I know he heard that conversation as well. Naruto, what the hell?" Naruto's voice rang out through the seal chamber. Kyuubi looked up, with a smirk, to see the sputtering, blushing boy in front of him. This was the best entertainment he could have possibly foreseen. "Is something wrong, boy?" Kyuubi asked slyly. Naruto sputtered as he stood in front of the cage. "You know damn well something wrong, Fox." "What, how, I don't understand." Naruto sputtered out the last part in a confused tone of voice. Kyuubi laughed internally, realizing he hadn't seen the boy this flustered since that time his sensei bought him non-orange clothes. Closing his eyes, he remembers watching that memory as Naruto continued staring off into space in front of him. Flashback 8 months ago, Kyuubi felt the adrenaline rushing through his vessel's body. Was it fear, but what could possibly be happening? Suddenly he felt the boy calm down. "I wonder what just happened?" Kyuubi asked himself. He knew that when the boy was resting tonight, he would pull him down to the seal to talk. If something interesting happened. Kyuubi wanted to know. And so Kyuubi waited. "G-Fox is sleeping," a voice muttered by him. He opened one eye and then raised his head. In front of him was the boy, but not looking as he usually did. Instead of the horrible orange clothes he usually wore, he was in form-fitting proper shinobi wear. The ninja was wearing black shinobi pants, which had white tape on the bottom, keeping them from catching on anything he came in contact with. The black netted armor undershirt and a navy blue sleeveless top that wrapped tightly around his torso. The outfit brought out the boy's natural coloring, and Kyuubi realized the child was quite attractive. "Well, don't you look more appropriate?" "Much better, now you look worthy of being the host of the Kyuubi no Yoku." "Well, this outfit will never be worn again," Naruto stated with finality. Out of curiosity Kyuubi tilted his head in a tell me more move. "Oh, just pull the memory. I'm not even sure what happened." Naruto sat down with his back to the bars of Kyuubi's cage. Truly curious, Kyuubi sent forth tendrils of chakra and located the memory the boy spoke of. He watched as it pulled up in front of him and then laughed. "Ah kid, don't ninja girls know that it is the boy that is supposed to chase, not the girl?" Kyuubi struggles to get out through the laughter. "Why would they do this? They're called fangirls," Naruto stated in a huff. "Jiraiya says that it is quite common for girls to chase after and stalk attractive men. Sasuke and Neji had this problem too. Jiraiya wants me to keep wearing it so he can have notes for his books. I never want that to happen again, so we had a little tiff and he agreed to get me a less obnoxious version of orange clothes." "So scary," Naruto shuddered. And flashback. "Well boy, it is obvious, she likes you." Kyuubi replied finally. From the way the boy spoke to her, has for a while. "So what do I do about it?" Naruto looked at Kyuubi with hope in his eyes. "Honestly, I am not sure. You see, the girl is of high rank, which means you cannot have a casual relationship with her and you are too young for a serious one. Not to mention we have no idea how her kin feel about you. Also, girls who stalk," Kyuubi shuddered, "not that different from those fangirls you fear. Worse, instead of openly chasing you, she is doing it from the shadows. So? That means she could be building fantasies in her head. She could be psycho and kid, never date the crazy ones. So, just be friends like usual with her?" Naruto asked. "Yeah." Kyuubi answered. The two sat in silence for a moment. Although, shy girls, they tend to be screamers. Kyuubi suddenly said out of nowhere. "Why, I knew this one." "No." Naruto stood up as he shouted. "I hate it when Jiraiya does it, but I sure don't want to know what it is like when you start telling me of your sexual adventures." Kyuubi watched the boy walk off in a huff. "What did I say?" Kyuubi wondered. Naruto eyed the fox with an angry glower on his face. The damn fox didn't even have the gall to pretend he was in the wrong. Was he cursed? Did he do something wrong in the past life that he was surrounded by these people? First the old man, who at least had the decency to try and hide it, then Kakashi, who openly read porn, then Jiraiya, a self-proclaimed super pervert, and now this. Naruto felt a growl starting in his throat. "Tsunade," he exclaimed loudly, "I am surrounded by hentais." He watched as Kyuubi gave a smirk. Of course the demon wouldn't feel guilty. But Naruto did. "What was so wrong in what I did?" Kyuubi asked, almost sounding innocent, except for the fact his eyes held humor and arrogance, the type from one who has gotten away with many misdeeds. "What was so wrong?" "How could you even ask that?" Naruto screeched back, pleased that his voice caused a Kyuubi to wince. "That woman is like a mother to me, and you Naruto was sputtering, unable to finish. Flashback a few days earlier. "You really think that can work?" Naruto asked into the silence. The boy was sitting in front of the cage talking to Kyuubi. The first part of the sight seal had worked marvelously, except for the whole Hinata situation, which the kid had decided to respond to by ignoring the situation. They had progressed onto the second part of the connection for the eyes. For an entire day, Naruto had made sure to keep his eyes from anyone's view, giving Kyuubi the chance to see the world with his own eyes, instead of watching images in front of him in the cage. Throughout the day, many times they had looked into windows, mirrors and any other reflective surface they could find. Maybe a few people might be thinking Naruto was developing a vanity streak, but truthfully, Naruto had been simply worried that Kyuubi's chakra might be showing, and Kyuubi was curious himself on whether the changes could be seen. After a week, they had realized that the eyes, when Kyuubi formed a direct connection, at most only developed a slit pupil look. No sign of red chakra, or should it be said, so small an amount that no one noticed. With that in mind, the next day off Naruto they fully activated the connections of the eyes. It had been a hard adjustment for Naruto. Kyuubi, a being with the instincts of a fox, decided to look at the world the way he would. He found the oddest things to focus on, in Naruto's opinion, but Kyuubi persisted, knowing eventually Naruto would see what he was looking around at. Many of which Naruto himself had been oblivious to. As with the Hinata situation, Kyuubi seemed to have an alertness that most shinobi would kill for. Perhaps it was the instinctual habits of the fox form that he bore, but Naruto had become shocked at things he had not noticed before. Whereas, Naruto had never really paid attention to the hundreds of shinobi around him, moving by shushin throughout the day. The demon fox did, and he brought it to the boy's attention. For the first few days Naruto had to catch himself often from stopping to look at something with full focus. It would not do for the village knucklehead to suddenly be noticing what had always been going on. After a few days, Naruto questioned why Kyuubi focused on these things, which was just what Kyuubi had been waiting for. "Naruto, you are a shinobi, you need to be aware at all times." Kyuubi had replied, "For now, I will take your attention to it, but eventually you will begin to notice this on your own. A fox always knows what is around, by scent, sight and sound. These are traits which will aid you when out of the village, and in all honesty this village is not exactly safe for you, as we know that your enemies can get in. You need to be aware. Besides, you will find that eventually you will notice, but it will be filed away unless it is out of the ordinary. Then you will have a true awareness of your surroundings." Kyuubi then silently watched as the boy thought about their conversation. When the sense of hearing increased, the kid had begun to notice more around him, with sight being added in. Kyuubi wanted Naruto to realize that it was the noise that lead an animal to flicker the vision. As if a light had gone in his head, Naruto began to realize what it was that Kyuubi was doing. Certain sounds that were not normal caught his attention, he would focus on them instantaneously. Kyuubi was attempting to train Naruto's senses to recognize these odd sounds. Eventually Naruto would be able to recognize what each meant, and he would only need to focus his eyes if the sound was off, without being dependent on Kyuubi to control the senses. At night, Kyuubi would watch as Naruto would think back on what they saw and hope that the boy would realize that many shinobi did this already. Kyuubi listened as the boy talked about how he had always thought that the flickering of Kakashi or Jiraiya's eyes was just a nervous twitch. Now he realized it was their heightened senses. They were watching what was happening around them at any given moment. And Kyuubi cheered within himself, for this was a lesson that could not be taught by lessons or explanations, a person has to realize it. In spars, with his many friends, this new awareness gave Naruto an added edge. Kyuubi watched his enemies and opponents in ways Naruto had never notices. Before, when fighting, Naruto would watch for an eye flick or movement of the body, changes in breathing patterns. Kyuubi took this further. He watched the tensing of muscles, the slightest twitch of an eye muscle versus the eye itself. Kyuubi watched as a predator that looked for where the prey would run, or as the prey, which looked for a chance to escape. By adding in the sense of hearing to the enhanced sight, Naruto could use his surrounding better once he learned to harness what Kyuubi was doing. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end. Yamato and Kakashi had started to notice the changes. Naruto was unsure if it was that he suddenly was more aware and it caught their attention, or that they were starting to sense Kyuubi's chakra. But Kyuubi had already begun to work on ways to handle this and waited for Naruto to come into the seal to speak. Kyuubi had begun to have an idea since that night he saw the boy Kiba with his nin dog. So when Naruto asked if his plan would work, he replied, "Yes, and your dog boyfriend is the reason why." Kyuubi answered. His clan works with nin dogs. These dogs merge their chakra with their ninja counterpart and vice versa. As a result, the human has heightened senses and can even mimic the animal. In reverse, the animals learn to understand ninjas and even learn to speak as you do. You have a chakra creature inside of you. For 16 years my chakra has been flowing in your system. They know that you were trained to use my chakra and that the seal is weakened. If we activate your sense of smell, since the changes we made cannot be seen from the outside of the seal, and if they do not sense me trying to influence you, they will assume that I am being altered by your chakra to have heightened senses. Which since, when under your chakra's influence I have always shown that will be understandable. So we just need to activate smell, and then we wait for them to call me in to be looked at. Kyubi smiled. He truly loved it when Naruto thought things through. The boy was a lot smarter than people gave him credit for. It disgusted him the way the humans tended to look at geniuses and prodigies. Over the millennium, Kyubi had seen many types of humans, and he knew almost everyone had the potential to be a genius, and prodigies were more common than were thought. The problem was that unless they were looked for, like larger clans did, they were often ignored. And any prodigy or genius who is not nurtured will eventually lose those traits. The boy he was sealed in had that potential, and the village had done nothing to encourage it, whether they just hadn't noticed it or chose to let it be undeveloped, Kyubi didn't care. He would nurture it, he would help it return to life, and watch as the boy everyone ignored became greater than any before him. True, this would benefit Kyubi as he wanted no one to believe Kyubi to be sealed in an idiot. But it was also a subtle revenge on the village, even if no one ever knew, Kyubi had made this shinobi, not the hidden village of the leaves. The next day, Naruto awoke to a whole new world. Throughout the day he had been driven mad by all the smells. Like hearing, this was an easy sense to connect, but it was, in Kyubi's mind, the hardest to become used to. A strong sense of smell could be overpowering, and learning to recognize the sense was complex. Regardless of Naruto's confusion, Kyubi was in heaven, he purred in contentment to smell the outside world, even if it was mostly the scent of humans. 2 days later, Naruto, Kakashi called out, "Tsunade-sama wants to see you." "Well Kyubi, guess it's time." Naruto muttered so softly only Kyubi could hear. "Let the games begin," Kyubi chuckled. The walk to the Hokage Tower was quiet. Yamato and Kakashi kept glancing at Naruto out of the side of their eyes, and Naruto was trying to pretend he didn't notice when Kyubi pointed his attention to it. Kyubi knew that this could be a dangerous situation if they believed he was attempting to escape or pauses Naruto, but he was confident that all would turn out fine. This Tsunade regarded the boy as kin and would look for another possibility. He tensed as Naruto walked into the Hokage's room and then froze. "Oh, my god. I am in love." Kyubi purred as he looked at the blonde woman with the luscious curves in front of him. As Kyubi watched, the blonde walked from the window she was leaning against and came forward. She spoke to Naruto and talked about how he seemed to be acting oddly lately. Kyubi half listened as Naruto spoke, with amazing acting abilities, about headaches he had been having for a while, and occasions where his eyes, ears or nose would suddenly seem to sense things stronger. How lately the headaches were almost gone, but his senses had not returned to normal. Normally Kyubi would listen carefully, be proud of the boy's acting skills, but no, he couldn't concentrate. No matter if he was a Biju, if he had once been the great fire god, he was in this current form a kitsune, and so help him, nothing mattered to a kitsune as much as admiring beauty, pranking the wicked, and seduction. And Kami's above, that was a woman begging to be seduced and admired. "So white, so curvy," Kyubi muttered quietly, "they're like pillows begging to have my head buried into them." Kyubi had seen many beautiful women, men, demons and other mythical creatures over the many millenniums he had existed. He had enjoyed the pleasure that could be experienced with all of those creatures. But so help him, that chest. It was perfect. Large and firm, with little bounce, smashed together to create a perfect valley that called for someone to just lay their head inside to listen to her heartbeat. Wait, she uses a genjutsu to hide her age, maybe they are a part of them. "I doubt such perfection could be real," Kyubi stated, shaking his head out of his stupor. "I need a closer look." Thinking hard, Kyubi remembered a long time ago when Naruto had moaned about him scratching his claws in the cage. Something about him understanding how a chalkboard felt when people ran their nails on it. "Well, here we go," Kyubi muttered. Looking up to wait until the woman was close, he dug his claws into the floor of the cage and dragged them back towards his body. The images disappeared as Naruto closed his eyes in pain. "Naruto, are you okay?" He heard the woman's voice, it was close, she was right in front of them. "Boy, open your eyes." Kyubi shrieked. Thinking quickly, he sent a small burst of chakra through the connections to eyes, ears and nose, forcing a burst of enhanced senses. "Yes." Kyubi growled as the boy opened his eyes, and right there in front of them were those perfect. Looking closely with every skill he couldn't see the genjutsu, and you know what, he didn't care, they were perfect, and he started purring in pleasure. He half listened as Naruto claimed, with quick thinking, that this was one of those headaches. He barely paid attention as the boy was taken to the hospital for testing. He purred slightly as the woman came to the concept that he had planned out with Naruto, that his chakra was altering the boy slightly, and Barley felt the need to smirk as they decided to keep an eye out for any other changes and would have the pervert check the seal when he came back to the village. No, he barely noticed any of this, only to have his attention sharpened when he realized he was close once again to those perfect, needing to have one more chance. He dragged his claws and sent a burst of chakra once more, and this time was greatly rewarded as Naruto's head was brought close to rest against those perfect white pillows as the Hokage comforted the boy. "So perfect," he murmured. Kyubi was content, at least until Naruto came into the seal, screeching about what he was trying to pull. Had Kyubi not been distracted by thinking of Tsunade, he might have come up with a workable answer. Instead he uttered the worst possible phrase. They were so perfect, I had to get a closer look." This is what led to this screaming, angry, vengeful Naruto standing in front of him, glaring with such anger. Then flashback. Kyubi started to respond. "You nothing." Naruto roared, "You made me molest my mother figure." Well, when put that way, Kyubi really had no response. But damn, it was worth it. Tanuki's advice. After the Gaara rescue, Naruto stared out at the deserted streets of Suna. The night was quiet as it was several hours before sunrise. He had been staring out into the night from the rooftop of the dorms that Suna had provided to the Konoha team upon their arrival back to the village. Unable to sleep after the events a few days earlier, Naruto had snuck out around midnight to think. He was pretty sure Neji and Guy had sensed him coming up here, but they had let him be, for which he was grateful. He knew he should talk this over with Kyubi, but another part of him, the part ashamed, held him back. Once again, he had lost control. Luckily Kakashi-sensei had been able to apply the seal to stop Kyubi's chakra from possessing him. Naruto had thought he was finally getting his anger under control, but he had obviously not learned to control it enough. For that past year or so, he and Kyubi had worked on controlling his temper so as to not allow Kyubi's chakra to merge with his own beyond his ability to handle. Hopefully to prevent him from going into the four-tail stage where neither was in control of his body. But the sight of Gaara's body had triggered something in him. It had begun the moment the news that Akutsuki had captured the Kazekage. Kyubi and Naruto had worked so hard to discover and destroy certain triggers to his anger. The only ones they had thought still existed were tied to Orochimaru and Sasuke, and that as long as he held his temper, it should be fine. But now it appears he had more problems than he knew. Of all people to see that, he muttered, "This will get back to Bachan." Uzumaki. A monotone voice spoke from behind him. Naruto twisted around to see Gaara standing behind him. "Gaara, should you be up? I mean, you were dead earlier this week." Naruto asked jokingly, scratching the back of his head to hide his unease. "Uzumaki, something is bothering you?" Gaara moved closer to lean against the ledge next to Naruto. "Shouldn't you be sleeping?" Naruto asked, returning to his position. "I have not slept for as far back as I can remember, although Shukaku no longer resides in me, I am not quite ready to accept sleep that easily. It will take time to adjust." Gaara turned his head to look at Naruto. "What is your excuse?" Debating on whether to speak, and if so how honest he should be, Naruto finally shrugged. "I guess if anyone could understand it would be you," he muttered softly. "I lost control of Kyubi again on this mission." "He took control of your mind?" Gaara asked quietly. My seal prevents that because of the training Iro Sennin gave me. When I become angry I pull on his chakra. It starts a chain reaction in which I pull too much and then my baser instincts take over. Unfortunately, it seems my baser instincts resonate with Kyubi too strongly. So my body with all that chakra acts on those instincts and neither Kyubi nor I am in control." Gaara was silent, absorbing Naruto's words carefully. "You are one of the kindest people I know on an instinctive level. I cannot picture your baser instincts being something to worry and lose sleep over." Gaara turned, "What are you not saying?" Taking a few breaths, Naruto braced himself, trying not to tighten his hands or strike out at walls as he desired. "I may appear the happy cheerful person, but I am still Jinchuriki. I have all the pent-up rage, anger and loneliness that all of us carry, mine is just buried much deeper. I can forgive Gaara, but I can't forget and somewhere inside of me I still want to hurt the ones who hurt me." Gaara looked at Naruto and then nodded. "I see, so instead of dealing with your anger, you just buried it and since Kyubi is the Biju known for its rage, yours resonates with his and you start striking out at all that is in your path. Tuckling, you always were the smart one, Gaara. Uzumaki, you are not as stupid as you act and as good an actor as you are, you cannot hide from someone who is like you. I always knew you had the rage and loneliness. Your eyes when you smiled that wide grin, I could almost see you suppressing the urge to hurt the ones who were cruel to you. Where my rage was on the surface, yours was hidden away. I assumed that you had purposely hidden yours so that you could be the person you wanted to be, not what your village tried to make you." He sighed. "I see now, you were not conscious in your decision to bury your negative emotions." "Yes and no. The problem is that I have for the most part dealt with my childhood, but I have holes in my memories. Some are memories I myself have suppressed until my mind is able to deal, and I don't think I can as yet. Others, I believe the council may have had memory suppression seals placed on me to keep me from going insane. But the emotions tied to those memories." Naruto looked into the sky. those are still there unresolved. What makes you believe this? Glancing from the corner of his eye to see his reaction. Kyubi. A slight tension and then the body relaxed. You communicate with him? Ah. It's kind of funny, he is known as the most terrifying of the Biju, yet to me, he has become friend, father figure, older brother, teacher and enemy all in one. Naruto turned and tensed. Konoha would kill me if they knew he communicates with me. Then you should not let them know, Gaara looked into the sky. I am the last to give out information on you and your prisoner. I myself listened to mine, and he is known as the insane one. But do you trust him? That would worry me. I did research and he has confirmed to me, when Kyubi gives his word, it is binding, I trust on what he gives his word on. For the most part of everyone around me, he has been the most honest in his dealings. Not that I don't doubt at times, but he has not betrayed or played me false in any way, as yet. I know of no one who has been as bluntly honest as he has. Even Bach-an and Iro Sennin are hiding information from me. I understand they have to, but it makes it hard to trust them. Naruto took a breath, it is not even that they are hiding things from me, but that they lie to cover it, instead of just telling me that they can't answer my questions. Gigi, when he was alive, would tell me when you're older or I promise someday to explain. But Bach-an and Iro Sennin they lie, or redirect the conversation. It is as if they think they have to protect me, but it is the wrong way to go about it. It only adds to my anger. Gaara nodded his head, then you must find a way to get at those memories and deal with the anger. Can Kyubi help you access them? Naruto smiled, he had known instinctively Gaara could be trusted. They were the same, even if Gaara was now free of his tenant. Ah, he looks through the ones I sealed and slowly opens them to my dreams to start working on them gently, then we take it from there. But some he thinks are better left alone, and he is not sure how to access the ones Konoha has sealed without blasting them open, which would be bad, he sighed. What worries me is that Jiraiya set up triggers to drawing on Kyubi, and if I cannot get them under control, it could cause problems when Sakura and I go after Sasuke. Why? Sasuke, Orochimaru and the rivalry, those trigger me faster than anything. But I promised Sakura that we would go after him, and we are running out of time. I wish I could help, Uzumaki. Naruto turned and smiled at Gaara, well you could. Gaara tilted his head in questions, start by calling me Naruto, instead of Uzumaki. For the first time in a while, Gaara smiled. Kyubi watched as the memory played. He smiled to himself. The boy Gaara was truly strong to have stayed sane with that crazy tanuki in him, but Kyubi couldn't help worry that he might spill the boy's secrets. But just as Naruto trusted in him to help with his memories and anger, he would trust in Naruto. If he believed this Gaara could be trusted with their secrets, he would hope for the best, though it went against his nature. Besides, he had seen from earlier memories, his boy, he could truly connect to people in ways that forged bonds stronger than anything Kyubi had seen. Crossing his front paws in front of him, he decided to think on the tailed form problem. Perhaps there was a way to direct the state so that instead of uncontrolled destruction, the rage could be directed. As he thought on it, he felt the air shift as Naruto stepped into the room. I see you have decided to trust the Tanuki boy. Kyubi growled in mock anger. Spying on my memories, Naruto asked raising one eyebrow. He is family in a way. I trust him to not spill secrets. Just as he can trust me to always come if he needs me. Kyubi tilted his head, and do you truly trust me? Naruto tilted his own head, further than I can throw you, which isn't very far, why? Well, kitsunes always leave a present for family before they leave. Naruto suddenly smirked evilly at Kyubi, who returned the smirk with a wicked grin. Naruto snuck out of Gaara's office smiling. Now to go meet with Sakura at Chiyo's grave, and then they could get out, hopefully before Gaara went to his office. Naruto and Gaara stared at each other at the gates of Suna. This is uncomfortable, he threw to himself. He had never really had to say goodbye to anyone. Jiraiya and he had left Konoha without saying goodbye, the few times he had interacted with Gaara or anyone else he could call friends, he had just acted as if he would see them later. I really suck at this interaction. Long conversations at night when no one was around, check, communicating without words, check, forming a bond for life, double check. Saying goodbye in front of others, bad. I guess this is when you normally shake hands and part ways. I'm bad at that kinda thing so. Naruto froze looking at Gaara who had his hand outstretched. Great, now even the ex-emo psycho is better than I am at this. Suddenly Naruto felt sand grabbing and pulling his hand forward. He smiled softly. Trust Gaara to realize that for all his bluff, Naruto was bad at touching as much as he was. To use the gifts given by his Biju, that made all the sense in the world. Gaara's way of saying, no beast resides in me, but the mark is still there. We are still the same. Naruto looked on as Neji yelled at Lee about trying to copy Guy and Kakashi, truly that was a memory that needed to be sealed. Creepy. Putting his hands in his pocket as they all continued to walk, he felt something brush his hand. Pulling it out, he smiled softly to see the small sand statue of Shukaku. Ah, family. It almost makes me feel bad about the going away present I left him. What was that, Naruto? Sakura asked. Scratching the back of his head, nothing, Sakura-chan. He stated, running forward to catch up with her. Back in Suna, Gaara walked into his office with his siblings. Temari and Kankuro had been rather clingy since the kidnapping, not that he minded too much. Suddenly feeling a tension in the air, he looked up and froze. Uzumaki. He muttered darkly. Standing in front of him was a traumatizing scene being played out by what he assumed was Naruto's Kage Bushins. The green-wearing sensei, Guy was his name, and his clone student, Lee, were hugging each other, tears streaming from their eyes, while a sunset appeared in the back of them. This scene, which he once witnessed in person, was horrifying. Sending his sand out to crush the clones, they suddenly turned to him. This is how I say goodbye to my family. Then both clones disappeared. Temari and Kankuro started snickering, and Gaara allowed a small smile. You realize this means war? He asked of his siblings. Oh yeah, we have enough to deal with, no need for us to have had to witness that horror. Kakuro muttered, catching on to Gaara's meaning. Temari smiled and chuckled. We have to have it planned out for when I am next in Konoha, so I can set it up then. As the two started to sit and discuss how to prank the ultimate prankster Naruto, Gaara smiled softly, family. Boy, it is not as bad as you are making it out to be. Kyuubi's voice was almost aggravated. For the past hour the boy had been pacing, gesturing wildly and muttering about what had happened earlier that day. Kyuubi knew the boy needed to calm down and get real sleep, or he would not have the chakra needed for the rest of the mission he was on. How can you say that? Naruto turned fast and stared up at the giant fox. Sakura was hurt. Yamato Taicho said it was all because I lost control. Because he is wrong. Kyuubi roared, finally fed up with the whining. The plan worked, we were able to direct the rage to only the snake man. You attacked no one else. But Sakura-chan got herself injured, not you. Kyuubi roared again. He finally noticed that his young host had shut up and was looking at him hopefully. How so? Naruto asked quietly. I can't access the memories of the fight, what happened? Kyuubi settled himself down, this would take a bit and he needed the boy to be relaxed so his reserves could build up, he himself was tiring from repairing the damage to the boy. Day before mission to intercept Sasori's spy. Naruto was calm, he was collected, he needed to talk to Kyuubi. Earlier that day, he had overheard Tsunade, Shizune and Sakura speaking about a letter to Sasuke. Although every part of him wanted to go on this mission, another part was terrified. Orochimaru and Sasuke were his biggest triggers to rage and pulling on Kyuubi's chakra. He did not want to lose control again, not to mention the council would have a fit if he was shown as unable to control Kyuubi. Someone was going to replace Kakashi and he knew that this person was going to report everything to the council and Hokage. If he was shown being out of control, it would be bad. He wasn't even sure what they would do to him. Taking a deep breath, he sent his mind inwards, hopefully he might have an idea. Walking up to the cage, he was stumped. The great Kyuubi was sleeping. Oi, team, wake up, he shouted. As one eye opened, he watched as giant shark teeth came into view as the Biju yawned. You bellowed. He growled out. What are we going to do? Naruto jumped straight into the heart of the problem, looking up at the beast with hopeful eyes. Staring down at the boy, Kyuubi responded, about what? What has happened? Sometimes he wondered if the boy remembered that he only knew what was going on through the boy's memories, and since he had been sleeping, he had no idea what had happened. Oh sorry, it seems that we have information on a possible spy in Sound, we're going after him. Kakashi is out of commission, and so we are getting a replacement. Sakura told me to meet her in a few hours, we are meeting new teammates who were appointed by Bachan and the council. Naruto looked up again, make a guess on what that could mean. Kyuubi set one of his tails swinging as he thought this over. Not good. He muttered. Although he had been thinking about it, he wasn't completely sure that his idea to control the fourth tail stage would work. But, if the boy was being sent on this mission, they would have to hope field testing would work. I may have come up with a way to partially control the fourth tail stage, but I am not sure how well it will work. Kyuubi finally uttered. As Naruto looked at him hopefully, he winced internally at the chance the two would be taking. I think that as you start to lose consciousness in the forming of the fourth tail, if you come into the cage with me and we merge a small portion of your chakra to mine, I can exert a small amount of control. Why not me? Naruto questioned. Because, you are born with a human body, mine is really a manifestation of my chakra. As such, I don't feel pain, which is why I am able to control the chakra. Your body is only able to withstand the two-tailed stage easily and the beginning of the third tail stage. The pervert set your body up to go past the limits, which is why you lose control. If you were in the cage, I should be able to direct the body somewhat. Not complete control, but I believe I can stop you from attacking allies and only go after enemies. Naruto thought about it, tell me more. Naruto watched as Yamato lead the team into the house he had created. Something about this guy's chakra set his own on edge. The feel of the guy himself put him at ease, but whenever he did those mocked jutsus, his chakra got edgy. He wasn't sure what it was, but he knew as soon as he slept, he would ask Kyubi if he knew. He sent a small snarl at Sai, seriously what was up with this guy, as he made another rude remark. After discussing their plans, Naruto lay down to sleep and sent his mind to Kyubi's cage. When he got there he found the Biju watching the memories of today, especially the ones of Mukden jutsus. "Boy, I think they already know you can't control my chakra past a certain point," the rumbling voice was soft yet cold. "Who is he? Why is it when he does those jutsu my chakra gets edgy?" Naruto stopped not knowing how to explain. Because the chakra type required for doing those jutsus is also used to control a Biju's chakra. It can capture and to a certain level control me, Kyubi snarled out. "You mean what you told me about the Shodai Hokage using a strange chakra to capture the other Biju?" Kyubi shut down the memories and turned to look at the boy closely. "Ah, as I told you certain clans' bloodlines were created to control demons, and by extension Biju. The Sharingan is one example, that one was primarily created to control demons, which is why it can exert control over even me. Although, because of my strength, a regular Sharingan can only suppress my chakra for a short time, it requires a fully developed Sharingan like Madara or Itachi to control me and force me to go against my will. The chakra of the Senju clan has the ability to pacify all creatures imbued with chakra. That is why they can combine to create wood, a true user of that bloodline could control anything with chakra within it. As pure chakra creatures, Biju become weak against it, as the chakra forces ours to calm, making us submissive. I had thought that the last user of the line had died without passing on the ability as other users to breed with the bloodline with him were no more. It seems this man has the ability although not as strong as others had it. So the council sent him to control me if I go out of control?" Naruto asked, sliding down to the floor. I think your Bachan sent him, he smells of no ill will to you, I think the council's spy is the other one. He is not what he is pretending to be. I know, I think he may be an assassin sent to kill someone, not sure who though." Kyubi, resting his head on his paws, let out a sign of air, "Are you ready for tomorrow?" Naruto looked away and then turned back, his eyes glowing, "As ready as I can be." As Naruto looked at Kabuto and Orochimaru, he could feel Kyubi's chakra and his own starting to resonate. He knew everyone on the bridge was in trouble. Yamato, even if he had Mukden, was probably not up to taking on a Sennin, especially one of the snake's levels. Add in Kabuto and the questionable objectives of Sai. Damn, he thought, I may not have a choice. Kyubi, I hope this works. Naruto started allowing his anger to grow, he felt the chakra beginning to boil his coils. Thankfully, Snake Man was helping with his insults. As he felt the chakra swirl, he started to embrace it, the rage that came with it, and began to attack. Please, everyone back away. As he struck out with the chakra to destroy the bridge, he hoped everyone would be safe and felt his mind sliding away slowly. As his skin began to pull away from his flesh, he felt a tug and his mind was in the sewers of his mindscape. The water was rising and he could hear Kyubi calling to him. He swam through the water but wasn't sure he was heading in the right place. Suddenly an image of Sasuke was there, calling to him, "Follow me." Smiling he followed the image of Sasuke and saw the cage of the Kyubi. He swam in between the bars and felt the great beast before him. "I hope you do not betray my trust," were his last thoughts as Kyubi surrounded him with his chakra and his mind faded. "Sakura-chan," he uttered softly, his eyes opening to see her face above him, crying. "In our combined form, we were only attacking the snake and it was pushing him back." Then the snake man pulled out that sword of his. I have to wonder how he got his hands on that sword as it was not made for mortal hands. He tried to impale us, which, when we tried to protect ourselves, sent us all the way back to the bridge where your Sakura was. The power we exerted to keep the sword from impaling us and the fact that I could sense allies started calm you down and force the chakra away. Then that man, Kabuto. Kyubi looked questioningly at the name, he started saying to the girl about how you were becoming a monster just to save the younger Uchiha. Not completely untrue. Naruto muttered. As I was saying, Kyubi gave Naruto a dirty look, as you started to calm down, I had less control when the girl screamed out to you and started to run towards us. What she planned to do I have no idea but she startled us and we reacted by striking out. I managed to deflate most of the blow, but our combined chakra struck her arm, which left the scar. Kyubi stayed silent, watching as Naruto took in what had happened. Finally he saw the tenseness of his shoulders ease. So if she hadn't run into us, without a plan, we wouldn't have harmed her? He asked quietly. Ah, she reacted much as she did when you were younger. She ran in, not thinking, and almost got herself killed. Just like when she ran between you and the Uchiha when your spars turned deadly. She has grown up much, boy, but she still has not learned enough. Even that Yamato tried to stop her. Then why did he say it was my fault? Naruto was trying desperately to understand. He could barely contain my chakra to get you free of it. I think he is hoping by making you feel guilty, you will stop using my chakra. Naruto stood up. Sometimes I wish I could be honest with everyone. Let them know that you and I talk, that you and I realize that it is dangerous to use your chakra. That you are trying to help. Silently Kyubi watched. Well, if we might see Sasuke team tomorrow, we need to have a plan. He may try to use his Sharingan to see into us. If that happens, what do we want him to see? Kyubi gave a vulpine grin. He loved how this boy bounced back so fast. Funny you should ask, I may have some ideas. Naruto watched as Yamato Taicho opened the hole into the snake's lair. See, just like I said, Yamato stated with a smirk in his voice. Once the hole was open, they jumped through and got into positions. Well, at least we've succeeded with the infiltration. We'll look for Sai first. It was silent in the corridors, this way. He headed forward, Sakura following, leaving Naruto to bring up the rear. At each corner they would halt, allowing Yamato to see if anyone was ahead of them. Naruto couldn't focus too well, since he hadn't fully recovered from Kyuubi's chakra. As such, he had to concentrate hard to hide his chakra signature, as it kept fluctuating, trying to return to its proper balance between the two sources. All clear, let's move. Naruto moved forward at Yamato's words. They moved at a silent run, just a little further. He pulled to a stop with the other two when they got to the door for the room Sai was in. Yamato placed his hand on the door and smiled, pushing the door open, and look who we have here. He stated, opening the door to move in, Naruto and Sakura following. Inside a small room with a desk, lamp and bed was Sai, looking at them in shock. But true to his Anbu training, Sai suddenly relaxed and smiled that sickly sweet smile, the Hokage-controlled Anbu, impressive as always. To think the fake corpse wouldn't fool you. His voice trailed at the cold look on Yamato's face. Why don't you tell me what is going on here? Naruto couldn't stand it anymore, his emotions still out of control. He walked forward, grabbing Sai's shirt, pulled him forward, and shouted, "You. Why did you betray us? You shouldn't make too much noise here, it'll cause trouble." Sai answered with a smile. "You?" Naruto growled. "Naruto?" Sakura growled out. Looking into Sai's closed eyes and a smiling face, Naruto growled and released his shirt, pulling away. Sakura pulled out Sai's picture book. "Here, we found this, it's yours, I believe." She asked. "Thank you. You're under Danzo's orders, right? Danzo's planning something, working with Orochimaru, right? Are you the chosen go-between? What is he up to?" As Sai smiled at Sakura, Naruto thought on the words. The name Danzo stuck in head. He had vague memories of a man with one arm and eye wrapped up in a soft smile. Vague memories shot through his head. Jiji, he thought, the other elders, something about that name. He's plotting the destruction of Konoha, right? Yamato stated, part 2 of it, right? At those words, Naruto tried to focus on the talking around him, not on the old memories popping up. Naruto wasn't sure if he believed that Danzo's plan was that simple. It didn't feel right for some reason, memories tickling the back of his mind. It frustrated him. "We already know your smiles are fake," he shouted again, "and the same for the lies you force through them." Silence in the room before Sai spoke. "My mission ended in failure the moment you found me, and I'm not going to be able to take care of the three of you by myself, so since you already know so much, there isn't much reason to hide things anymore. Just as you say, we are going to destroy Konoha as it exists today." "Why you?" "In order to destroy Konoha, I was to gain Orochimaru's favor and giving us a chance to ally with him, that was my true mission." "Attaboy, now tell us everything you know." Yamato stated, aiming a kunai at the northeast Anbu. "You do realize what you're saying, what it means?" Naruto growled out. "That's not all, I was also supposed to secretly transmit information on Orochimaru to Danzo-sama. In other words, I was assigned an espionage mission. So the mission was to ally with the enemy, only to use and outwit him in the end, and that enemy is Orochimaru." "Such a dangerous mission," Sakura murmured. "Once Konoha falls, Orochimaru is guaranteed to betray us in the end after all." "My mission was to allow us to stay one step ahead of him," Sai smiled. "Danzo wants to make Konoha his own after all. And you were assigned a mission to make that possible, a solo mission at that. I was singled out due to special abilities I have. Information I write morphs into what are like small animals, and protecting themselves from harm, they carry information to their destination. If Konoha becomes the stage of a battlefield again, innocent people will die." Sakura shouted. "What you're trying to do will have real consequences." Naruto looked at Sai, something wasn't right. As Sai began to talk with Sakura about Northeast and his brother, Naruto tried to grasp the memory of Danzo and also to keep his face still as it came to him. Flashback. As Danzo left, Naruto looked up from the floor he was sitting on. Jiji had a strange look on his face, and the 5-year-old boy was a little afraid of it. He got up, placing the book that Danzo had given him on the floor, and walked over to the old Hokage. "Jiji?" His voice was soft and questioning. Looking up to see him, the old Hokage smiled and then put his arms out to pick Naruto up and place him on his lap. As he cuddled into his Jiji's lap, the boy asked softly, "Is he a bad man?" Sarutobi signed and looked out the window at the village and then back at the small boy in his arms. He murmured softly, "Not as long as he is under control. Danzo and I may not agree on the way Konoha is run, but as long as we are strong he is content. If Konoha became weak then I would worry." "What do you mean?" Naruto asked, his face scrunching up in confusion. "Danzo, although he likes power, prefers to rule from the shadows. As long as I ignore certain things that I would rather not handle, he will support me and stay in the shadows. If he ever lost the power he has and the ability to be a part of ruling Konoha from the shadows, then he would be a danger. You see Naruto, the Hokage requires people to help him run the village. There are Koharu and Himura who aid me in public and who help Danzo in private. Danzo runs the parts of Konoha I as a public leader cannot. So he does the dirty work but answers to you?" Naruto asked. "For now, but if the Hokage blocked his work, he would become dangerous. It would be worse if the Hokage was at odds with Danzo and the elders. Truth is they have more power than I, except that I control the public view and that makes me dangerous to them. The villagers are easily swayed by leaders and the shinobi follow the Hokage. As long as I know most of what he is doing and let him and he reports to me, I have the leverage to control him. I can turn the public against him and destroy his power base. But if I was to halt his power and he worked in the shadows keeping it from me, he could undermine me and destroy me instead. Do you get it?" Naruto thought on the words. He wasn't sure that he did, but Jiji was never wrong, so he nodded, hoping to sort it out later. Maybe Raven-kun or Hawk-kun could explain it. "How does he do stuff if the ninjas follow you?" he asked. "That is why I publicly closed down his northeast Anbu," Sarutobi laughed. "But they still run through money funneled to him by the elders. It's a ploy, you'll get it when you're older." The old man smiled suddenly. "You're my biggest leverage, you know." Naruto looked at him wide-eyed. "How?" "By letting him talk to you and give you those books, he thinks he is going to have power over you when you're older, Naru-chan. You see you will be a very powerful player when you're older. That is why the elders, Danzo and I take care of you." Naruto looked at him with a look of awe. Just always remember Danzo likes to stay 3 to 5 steps ahead of everyone and he never lets his Anbu followers know the truth. They know that they follow his orders and what they need to know to make the ones he sends them to believe one thing, when in truth it is something else. "Is that why you let me go with Obis and Koharu to visit him in the sewers?" Naruto asked. "Yes, he kept you safe as a baby, you know. If not for him, you might not have reached this age. But now you're a big boy and starting the academy next year." Sarutobi smiled. "Just remember, as long as Danzo is watched by someone, be they the elders or the Hokage, and he is answering to one of them, all is well." Naruto nodded and then settled down into the Hokage's lap. Then flashback, as they rushed to catch up to Sasuke and Sai, Naruto cursed in his head. Danzo. Is Tsunade working with her against him? Hopefully he could stop Sai in time. No, he shook his head as he ran. Sasuke wouldn't go down. As his breath hitched and he fell to the floor he cursed again. "Guzo, I know I have to keep the balance off between Kyubi and myself for this to work, but damn it," as he saw the light ahead he got up, reaching into his shirt to make sure that he could get Tsunade's necklace off when the time is right. "Remember, as long as that necklace is on you, the Uchiha won't be able to follow my chakra to the seal. Make sure it falls off when the time is right." Kyubi's words rang in his ears. Naruto breathed heavily as he clenched his hands, seeing the claws forming. Next to his hand was the Shadai's necklace. It hurt to pull on Kyubi's chakra. Thankfully no one knew that after going four-tail, he could only touch a limited amount of Kyubi's chakra. He leaned his head up and opened one eye, looking at Sasuke. "Amen, you bastard, take the bait," he thought, sending his mind to the seal. Naruto rushed to the Kyubi's chamber. Stopping in front of the cage, he looked up. Kyubi looked at him and he smiled. Kyubi backed into the cage, hiding himself as he felt the Uchiha's chakra catching onto his. "Show's on." The beast thought. This is your chance, Naruto, to show him. Make him see how our powers are not to be trifled with." Kyubi used his voice in a soothing way, trying to seem like he was coaxing the boy. "What's wrong? Why the hesitation?" He sent his chakra to the outside of the cage and formed a chakra version of himself to appear. As the fox head appeared he smirked at the scowl Naruto had formed on his face. "You need my power, right? Well then, who do you want to kill?" Naruto looked up at his chakra fox face and spoke, "Your face, I don't want to see it anymore." Naruto could feel Sasuke behind him. "Please let this work." "Your face, why is it you grow fearful?" Kyubi purred out. "Shut up. I don't need your power anymore." Naruto screamed out. Kyubi started laughter from both the chakra head and his own from within the cage. "And just who was it that up until now came shouting, 'Lend me your power'? Every time something came up. You should know quite well you can't do anything without me." He sensed the Uchiha listening carefully and smirked, "Now the peace still a resistance. Remove the seal once and for all. If you do then I'll entrust you with all of my power." He coaxed again. Naruto smirked and held up his hand, "Get lost." Itachi Sasuke stood in front of the Kyubi, his hand touching the chakra-created nose. Ah, so you're one of the Uchiha, allowing me to congratulate you on making it this far. Why are you here? Naruto asked Sasuke with a hiss in his voice. Now I am able to see, so this is your secret power then. Hard to believe that something like this existed inside of you. Impressive that you've become able to see me here inside of Naruto. Such would be the power of that accursed Sharingan and your forsaken heritage. Kyubi tried to control his laughter as Naruto shook his head in confusion, looking between the two of them. Well, it seems this isn't the first time you've gazed into eyes such as these, which would make you the nine-tailed demon fox, no doubt. Idiot. Kyubi and Naruto thought together, mental eyes rolling, who else would he be? Eyes with such power and chakra more sinister than my own. Kyubi mentally rolled his eyes again at the crap he was spewing, not at all unlike what I once saw in a certain Uchiha Madara. He watched as the boy in front of him snarled at being compared to another Uchiha. He felt the boy exert his chakra and allowed it to destroy the chakra fox head he created. And you expect me to know that person? Why? Sasuke asked. Unbelievable, to think you'd even be able to suppress my power. I may not see you again, but I warn you, don't kill Naruto, you'll end up regretting. Kyubi watched as the boy ripped himself free from Naruto's mind. He looked out from the cage and winked at Naruto, who smirked back at him before leaving the seal himself. As Kyubi sat in the cage in silence, he let out a bark of laughter. That has to be the dumbest Uchiha I have ever met. He growled. Defiantly, like the older brother better. He turned to rest deeper into the cage to await Naruto's return. Madara must be crying at what his clan has become. I couldn't stop him again, I'm so weak, Naruto snickered to himself. He rested his head on the ground, his body shaking, sobs coming from his throat. Please don't let them notice I'm laughing, please don't let them know. Naruto's body shook from the laughter. Sasuke was not what he remembered. You know crying isn't going to bring Sasuke back. Sakura's voice came to his ears. I'm here to. Well, both get stronger and bring him back together. Naruto focused, trying to calm his body. He needed to look up soon, and he had to look upset, not hysterical. There's another 1/2 year left, and 3's better than 2, obviously. Sai's voice came to him, besides, I'm pretty strong myself, you know. Naruto froze and then lifted his head, scratching the back of his neck. Hee, thanks guys. Kyubi looked up as Naruto came in. Sleeping? He growled. Yeah. They looked at each other and then both started laughing hysterically. After a while they calmed down. You know, that boy is an idiot, which is funny, since that's what he calls you. Kyubi said between chuckles. Nah, he's just easily manipulated, especially if you stroke his ego or piss him off, both of which are easy to do. Naruto said, wiping his eyes. His brother really did a number on him. They both kept chuckling a bit before Naruto straightened up and put a serious look on his face. Did it work? Kyubi grinned, yes, when he disrupted my chakra, I sent a small amount to connect to his, back to his Sharingan, which was sent into his mind. We now have a connection from my chakra to his and can see into his dreams and subconscious thoughts. After a bit, I might even be able to implant some messages into his head. Kyubi closed his eyes, then looked up. Are you sure you want him back though? Itachi seems like more fun. Naruto though about it and then shrugged his shoulders. I guess for now. Sakura wants him back. He seemed to pause again. Wanna hear something funny? I finally figured out why this place looks like this. Kyubi looked up and tilted his head. I spent the first year or two of my life in Northeast Anbu, and they work out of the sewer system in Konoha. Now that caught Kyubi's attention. Walking through the belly of the great beast skeleton, the Taiyuki smoothed his hands down the fur on his shoulder armor. I've finally arrived, he uttered in his quiet yet deadly tone. He walked through all the bones of the humans the great beast had fed up before his death, to a strange altar with a banged up beaten down sword embedded into it, to the treasured sword within father's corpse. I hear the Tetsuseiga is a sword forged from your father's own fang. The insipid Kappa demon stated. That is to say, that the one who holds it in his hand will inherit your father's spiritual power. The hand of the demon reached out to grab the worn handle of the sword, the fanged sword Tetsuseiga, a sword which can destroy 1,000 demons in one swing. The demon's hand pulled back as it was burned, a loud yell of Sesshomaru. Echoing from above. Wait a second, I just realized the demon's name is Killing Perfection. Naruto interrupted. Ah, what else would you name the firstborn of Itachi? Kyubi answered sarcastically, rolling his eyes at the interruption. So an all-powerful great demon dies, and his son goes into his dead body to get a sword which he somehow hid in his body after he died? Naruto asked with a confused look on his face. No, you idiot, did you even listen to the first half of the story? The half-breed dog demon was given at birth the duty to protect his great father's grave. A black pearl which was the passageway to the land of the demon boneyard was hidden in his eye. His older, more powerful full-blooded brother came looking for it, thinking that his hated younger brother knew where it was. Now, after playing a cruel manipulative game to find the pearl, has gone into his father's grave to steal the sword. Honestly, Kyubi was still not sure why he bothered telling these stories to Naruto. After a few nights of being haunted by nightmares from the incident with Jiraiya, Naruto had taken to coming down to talk to Kyubi rather than trying to sleep. Somehow, the boy had convinced the kitsune to tell him stories to keep his mind busy. Tonight, Kyubi had decided to tell him one of many stories about the great dog demons, but the boy was lacking in an attention span. Kyubi had gone over the beginning of this story a few times. It was beginning to annoy him how Naruto barely paid any attention. This was demon history, for Kami's sake. But if this Sesshomaru is the older brother, shouldn't he be charged with watching the grave? Normally, but that is what this story is about. Kyubi snarled. This is the story about two half-brother demons, which are fighting over their father's legacy. Oh, okay, then where were we? Kyubi eyed the boy and then settled down to start again. The dog demon looked at his burnt hand. It won't come out, the Kappa screeched in shock. Figures, the dog demon muttered, there's a barrier on it, the yell Sesshomaru. Echoed from above. The older demon looked up and one eyebrow shot up upon seeing the Hanyu above him with his human Maiko pet. We're not finished yet. The Hanyu screamed in rage, digging his claws into his flesh, he pulled them out as screamed Sanku Tetsusuo. The Hanyu swiped down with Yaki-enhanced blood, landing on the floor as the older demon moved out of the way. What are you doing here, Inuyasha? Did you come here to finally dig your own grave? Or could it be that you came for a chance at father's fang sword? He uttered in that cold, emotionless voice. As the Hanyu stared at the sword, a voice spoke out, draw it out, Inuyasha. Myauga Jiji? The adolescent Hanyu murmured, looking at his shoulder where a flea demon sat. Sesshomaru-sama, you couldn't draw it, could you? The flea demon uttered. It must be that. Are you suggesting that Inuyasha can? Sesshomaru uttered in distaste. Wait a minute, these two are half-brothers. Yes, Kyubi sighed, once again annoyed by the interruption. They're new demons. At the nod from Kyubi, Naruto continued on. Their names are Killing Perfection and Dog Spirit. At another nod, what the hell type of names are those for dog demons? Kyubi felt like he should be banging his head against the floor. Once again, they are the sons of the great Inu no Taisho, the dog general of the West. He was so great a dog demon that he became a two-tailed dog, which is not easy for dog demons as most never evolve past one-tailed. His firstborn, who fought with him in his battles once he came of age, was named Killing Perfection, which is appropriate for a warrior caste dog demon. His half-breed son, who had human blood flowing through him, was named Dog Spirit of the Forest, which is also a name of power. Naruto was silent, okay. Waiting to see if another question would come, Kyubi started again. Of course, the flea demon continued, why else would Inuyasha-sama be entrusted with the dog general's tomb? Now quickly, Inuyasha, take the sword. Staring at his older brother, Inuyasha responded, Keh. Like I'm interested in some worn-out sword. Sesshomaru, you damn bastard, how dare you keep screwing with me like that? Inuyasha lunged at his brother with his claws, which Sesshomaru easily dodged once more. Asshole. Shit. Again Inuyasha missed his brother, who easily dodged. Mocking his little brother, where are you aiming? Heh. Your fighting style is as childish as ever. You can't win, Inuyasha, take the sword. Myauga screamed. Shut up, old man. Inuyasha snarled, again aiming for his brother with his claws. Inuyasha, just grab the sword already. The young human Maiko screamed. Hagam. Inuyasha paused to look up at the girl. Sesshomaru couldn't pull it out, right? So if you take it, you will totally be proving you're better than him. Not to mention disgracing him when you, the half-breed, could take the sword he couldn't touch. Huh? I don't get it. Naruto interrupted again. Oh, for the love of boy, you really do remind me of that Hanyu when he was younger. Kyubi roared in aggravation. Let me continue, you keep questioning before I get to the answers. No, I don't. Yes, you do. Do not. Do too. Not. Do too. Oh, for Kami's sake, will you stop and let me continue the story? Kyubi roared. Sorry. Naruto muttered, looking to the side. It wasn't his fault, no one had ever told him stories before. How was he supposed to know not to talk during the story? Inuyasha looked at the Maiko and then smirked at his brother, I get it. It would really annoy him if I could take the sword. Oh, Naruto said and then stopped at the dirty look the Kyubi shot him. That you can't take it either. Sesshomaru smirked back. This is my payback to you. Inuyasha said, placing his hand on the sword. All were shocked when no barrier rose up to stop the Hanyu from taking the sword, and Sesshomaru froze at the realization that the sword wasn't rejecting the Hanyu. But alas, the sword, although it did not reject Inuyasha, also did not allow itself to be pulled from its resting place. Inuyasha's face took an irritated look as he turned to look at the flea. Oi, I can't take it either. This farce is over. Sesshomaru stated, moving too fast to see. He suddenly had his brother's throat in hand and raised him above the ground. The sword is not for your deluded impure blood, now taste my poison claws. Poison claws? Why would a dog demon have poison claws? Kyubi groaned, rolling his eyes. He turned to look at the boy. Dog demons are usually guardians or warriors. White dog demons, as these two are the highest class of dog demon. They sometimes have the ability to turn their blood into blades, have claws that secret poison that differs between each one, and sometimes acidic drool. Any more questions? He growled. No, sorry, just asking, you know. Want to understand what is going on, not like I know about demons. Sesshomaru clawed his younger brother's arm, but Inuyasha managed to escape the death shot and instead took only a poisoned slice. The two brothers began to fight in earnest, claws and fangs bared. To the side the Kappa and the human Maiko struggled until the girl fell against the sword. Grabbing onto the handle, she saw Inuyasha in danger and she screamed his name and at the same time pulled the sword. Sesshomaru and Inuyasha looked on in horror at the human holding the fanged sword of their father. Sorry, it slipped. She uttered in horror. Can I interrupt to ask some questions, cause I'm actually getting tired and think I might sleep, but want to talk about the story first, Naruto asked, raising a hand in question. Kyubi snarled and then nodded his head, looking to the boy. Why do the two brothers hate each other? Aren't dogs pack animals? Naruto asked. Usually they are, but Sesshomaru was angered that his father had decided to mate a human and allow what he considered a taint on their bloodline to be born. So are all the stories about the two brothers hating each other and trying to kill each other. No, strangely the sword winds up being used by Inuyasha and not accepted by his older pure-blooded brother. You see, what Sesshomaru forgot was that particular sword was created to protect Inuyasha's human mother, hence it was meant for protecting humans, which at that time Sesshomaru hated. Does that mean if Sesshomaru ever learns to like humans he can wield the sword? Well, he did use it a few times, but no, it was meant for Inuyasha, and eventually Sesshomaru made his own sword which was better suited for him than his father's sword. Inuyasha continues to use that sword to my knowledge. He is quite dangerous with it in hand and has mastered it far more than his own father had. Naruto nodded and then looked up wide-eyed. Those guys still exist. Are they still fighting? Kyubi sighed, he didn't know why he bothered to even tell the story, it seemed Naruto just wanted to hear the important parts and not what lead up to them. He made a mental note to work on that with the boy, details were what won battles, not the main points. To make a long story short, the Maiko and the Hanyu went on a quest and eventually won. Sesshomaru was pulled in by his need to prove his superiority and claim vengeance on the bad guy and wound up having a small grudging admiration for his younger sibling. They learned to tolerate each other. After a few centuries and the death of the human girl who Inuyasha mated, they eventually became comrades. Last I heard they were mated and trying to repopulate the White Dog Demon clan by themselves. Nani? Naruto screamed. Kyubi felt his ears flinch at the echo the scream made inside the seal. What, they both wound up as the last of their kind. As such they had to breed to continue their line, or the great white Inu demon line would have died out. When mating season occurs and there are no others who are suitable around, a Hanyu who has survived as long as Inuyasha has can even appeal to elitists like Sesshomaru. Not to say they didn't have issues, but they eventually formed a tight bond. Because they were kin and from the same Inu line, the pups they birthed were quite strong and almost pure-blooded, since they also mated amongst themselves. The line has been purified and become even stronger than when there were several white Inu demons. Kyubi snorted in laughter, in fact once they got over the "you have to be my mate" problem, they had many children and are still spawning them, they are definitely prolific. Kyubi snorted again. The only problem they have is the ears. Naruto tilted his head, huh? Inuyasha has coney ears instead of forming appropriate imitations of human ears, which most demons form. Occasionally a pup with those ears is born. It is quite amusing, I mean here you have a warrior dog demon clan, terrors to fight, poison claws, blood that can turn into blades, acidic drool hell, their true form is a giant dog, almost equal to me in size. Now picture the way they intimidate other demons or humans and then picture them having little puppy ears. I mean poor Inuyasha, small children and females would scream and run to touch his ears all the time. But I don't understand, how could they mate each other? Naruto's face was screwed up in a confused look. Boy, you have to understand, demons have no problem with incest. In fact it's demons that makes the bloodline stronger. Why do you think shinobi clans with bloodlines like the Uchihas and Hyugas tend to marry only within their clan? Naruto looked at Kyubi with intense focus. What do you mean? Well, those bloodlines came from demons, as such the closer they breed together, the stronger the bloodline is. Unfortunately, these clans are also human, and so the close breeding causes problems that happen when humans breed too close. Why do you think most Uchihas turn psychotic? You see, your friend's clan tended to marry the females and males who had the ability together in hopes that the children would develop the Sharingan, but that tended to make them inbred, which led to the being a bunch of psychotic inbreeds. Naruto pondered on this in silence. That is why I have always found the truly strong clans don't have a bloodline, they breed outside their clans for characteristics they want to bring into their clan. Uchihas with strong Sharingans, they tend to be messed up in the head or prone to madness. It's probably a good thing that the Uchiha clan is down to just a few males, since human males can't breed. Kyubi was glad to see at least Naruto was paying attention to this information. Originally he had chosen the story of Sesshomaru and Inuyasha so that the boy would see that no matter how much brothers hate each other, in the end they will choose family over all else. Especially as Naruto seemed intent on getting between the two Uchiha brothers' feud. Naruto nodded in understanding and then froze again. Wait, Inuyasha and Sesshomaru, aren't they both males? How could they have kids? Kyubi stared at the boy and then groaning, he buried his head in his paws. What part of Demon and Hanyu did you not get? He whined in horror. Deep meaningless thoughts. Naruto sat with his back against the wall facing the cage. Boredom had driven him down to visit Kyubi, and for the most part, neither really had much to say to the other. As in the case of any moment of true boredom, random thought began to plague his mind. Kyubi? Naruto said looking up, his head tilted in curiosity. The great best looked up and replied, Nani? You know how when I use 3 tails of chakra my skin begins to burn off. And at 4 tails it is completely gone. He started. Curious as to where Naruto was going with his thought. Ah, what about it? Why do my clothes not burn off? Kyubi was stupefied. What do you mean? Well, every time that my skin burns, my clothes are magically undamaged. Now I know they are reinforced shinobi wear, but in regular fights they get all torn up, so why not burnt off by your chakra? I mean if it is strong enough to burn my flesh off, shouldn't my clothes go as well? Naruto was honestly curious at this point. Kyubi thought on this and then muttered softly. Cause this is a rated PG-13 manga, I suppose. The silence after that statement was worthy of a tumbleweed passing through. Nani? What did you say? Naruto asked, unbelieving of what he thought he had heard. Looking up, Kyubi answered. I said it's just one of those things. No reason, just is, be happy. Do you want to wind up naked in the middle of battle? Naruto squinted at the Kyubi. He was sure he just missed something. Cause you know this happened. Did not. Did too. Did not. Did too. Did not. Did too. Did not. Did too. You are pissing me off. Not. Are two. Not. Are two. Not. Are two. Not. Are two. Wait, what were we arguing about? Cause I can't remember. Kyubi looked at Naruto and Naruto looked at Kyubi. How long have we been at this? Naruto asked, finally. You know, Kyubi said finally, after they both realized this had been going on for over an hour. I suggest we both forget this happened, as it is an embarrassment to both of us. Naruto squinted at Kyubi, deal. As he turned to leave, for some reason Kyubi just felt he had to have the last word. Of course, you realize I eventually would have won the argument whatever it was about. As Naruto spun around to respond, a wash of chakra hit him, pushing him from the seal. Once he opened his eyes to stare at the wall of the room he was staying in, he snarled. He just knew Kyubi was laughing. Kyubi stared at the bars of his cage. He had been staring at it for days, trying to decide what to do. The brat had been asking a lot of questions of him lately in regards to where the Biju came from. What were they? Where did they come from? What were their purpose? Why did they seem to hate humanity? Or at least why did they attack villages, especially shinobi villages? The questions were endless. He was unsure how to handle these questions. Very little was known about the Biju by humans, completely due to Biju destroying those who knew about them, so he was the best place for the brat to gain knowledge of them. I am training you to survive the Akatsuki. The pervert would say. They are collecting the Biju, and you need to be prepared to protect yourself. It seems knowing there were others like him and the sand boy, and that a group of nin were intent on collecting them for who knows what reason made Naruto want to know everything about the Biju. He knew that if the boy never was told anything about them, it would in no way affect how he handled the coming battles, but a part of him knew he should tell the boy. The brat had been fed lies his entire life, and Kyubi would not be the one to expose the lies. He knew the brat could tell when people lied to him, and as such it lowered his trust in those who were trying to protect him. But if he wanted the boy to trust him, then he had to stand out against the others. Also, perhaps it would help the boy understand that there was more to this world than humans knew. And, if there is an organization of criminal who were out to capture him and the others, well, the boy would need any advantage he could gain. Perhaps knowing more of the world around him would aid him in the future. Kyubi had no intention of being under another's control. Sighing, he realized he would have to tell the boy some pieces of their history. Damn, and I thought telling him stories to get to sleep was hard. Kyubi grumbled. Well, I am putting rules in place before I start educating him on the creation of the great-tailed beast and the history of each one. Kyubi placed his head down on his paws and grumbled. And it will be an abridged version, he doesn't need to know all, just the basics. Naruto sat in front of the Kyubi's cage, listening to the furball as he paced within the cage, muttering to himself. Kyubi. He interrupted. The giant fox stopped in his rambling and looked at the boy sitting in front of him. What are you talking about? Snorting, Kyubi sat down and looked at the boy sternly. I have decided to tell you a bit about how the Biju came to be and a small amount of knowledge about each of us, what we were and what we became. But, he shouted seeing the gleeful look on the boy's face, there are rules that must be followed. Seeing he had the boy's attention, he started talking quietly. First, no interrupting, until I give you a look like this. Kyubi looked at the boy with an expression that could only be interrupted as yes. On his face, if I do not answer your question, it is because it is not one I choose to answer, no begging for an answer, stay silent about it. Third, no annoying me, this is not something any of us chose to remember with pride or joy. If you aggravate me, I will stop this, understood? Receiving a nod, he then continued on. Last, and most important of all, you never tell anyone what I have told you. We Biju have destroyed villages, nations even to hide the knowledge behind us. Naruto looked at him with a serious expression and thought on it. Hi, I understand. Nodding, Kyubi sat down to start the tale of his own history, which he hated to remember. In ancient times, long before humans developed the ability to use chakra as you shinobi do now, long before the times of the technology your kind still uses appeared, the world was different. What is known as your current world and nations did not exist, but a different world existed. Millennia ago, this world was unlike any you have seen. There were no villages like you have seen, most of the technology you have now did not yet exist, and humanity was in its barest infancy. Back then, humans barely lived a half of a century due to little understanding of what their bodies need and the dangers of a very young world. At that time there were thousands of mystical creatures, ranging from gods to creatures created from energy, human beliefs and demons. But the world was in chaos, as the world itself, still being in infancy, was a dangerous place to live in. Several of the higher beings convened and for the good of the world, certain gods were chosen to be sealed. They were elemental gods, who were sealed into specially made elemental shrines located around the world. These gods were Shukaku of the wind, Kyubi of the fire, Tsunade of the water, Raiju of the lightning, and Kaku of the earth. These chosen elemental gods were sealed into their respective shrines scattered throughout the world, and the fire shrine was the strongest. The reason that these gods were sealed was for the balance of the world, and they gladly allowed themselves to be enshrined for the good of the world. You see, the purpose of the shrines was to release spiritual energy, even as the great god slept within. These spiritual energies were that of the very elements they represented that also made up the natural energies of the world around us all. The spiritual energy would then flow from the 5 shrines to a 6th shrine that existed in the center of the 5. This shrine housed not an elemental god, but Haku, who was a god of nature, bound into an eternal tree grove in the center of the shrine. Haku's purpose was to collect the 5 elemental energies and then combine them to be sent out once again through the world. This created a perfectly balanced nature, one which allowed all creatures to exist in harmony for thousands of years. But all good things come to an end. Humanity developed in a way that none had foreseen. They started delving into technologies and trying to learn the secrets of the universe. They learned so much about their bodies that their lifespans doubled, if not more, and they reproduced in far greater numbers than the world could support. They built cities that reached into the sky and polluted the air they breathed. They created chemicals that were released into the earth and water, destroying its very nature. And they fought wars, horrible ones that harmed the earth as well as themselves as a race. As this occurred, the creatures of the earth that existed because of the balance of spiritual energy began to die or to go into hiding, creating pocket dimensions to live within. Then they created weapons of mass destruction, and with these constant changes to the world, eventually a great war appeared that nearly destroyed the world itself. This particular war tore the world apart. Mountain ranges were leveled, oceans appeared where once there was land sinking beneath newly formed seas. This continued for years until finally one unexpected occurrence happened that unleashed a blast of power that shook the world. This power created a backlash that awakened these slumbering gods and tore their energies apart. It warped the newly awakened gods as this evil power soaked into them, altering them, changing their base forms to that of an animal that resonated with their personalities. Shukaku of the wind was awakened and mutated into a giant creature in the form of a tanuki, a pure chakra creature that pulled the sand of the desert surrounding his shrine to give him physical touch. Kyubi, was turned into a giant kitsune whose very first sparked fires from the fire seal that existed within me. Tsunade was turned into a 3-tailed turtle that raged in the seas that had flooded its shrine. Raiju into a giant 6-tailed weasel with tails pulsing with the lightning and thunder it once commanded, and Kaku into a 7-tailed Mujina badger that sunk beneath the ground it had been enshrined in. Aku was turned into a dog that ripped out of the great tree-like shrine it had slept in, driven nearly insane from the sudden influx of elemental energies that flew from its body through its tail, that split into 5 to represent the 5 elements it controlled. The blast did not just catch these 6 gods as it resonated throughout the world, it also caught a few other creatures that were roaming the chaos the world had become. Nekomata, the pet of the death gods, who was wandering the world collecting souls, was morphed into a deadly 2-tailed fire cat. 2 ancient avatar gods that were the representation of marriage were caught and bound together into Soku, a 4-tailed creature. A lesser demon god that had been feeding on the terror of the humans in the world was turned into an Ushi Oni with 8 tails. These 9 creatures that were newly born from the energy struggled with the chakra that was merging with them. It messed with their minds, and they were driven beyond near madness from the influx of tainted chakra. Their rage was unimaginable and uncontrollable. They began to roam the world, taking out their rage on each other and on the humans who had led them to their new fates. Naruto stared at Kyubi as he paused in his telling. He saw that Kyubi had that expression on his face that stated he would answer questions, but so many ran through Naruto's mind, he couldn't speak any of them. The tale he had been told was beyond his imagining. It was not what he was expecting. Gods, avatars, demons, caught in an energy created by humanity that mutated them. No wonder they hated humans, they were changed by humanity, who had obviously been the villain of the tale. What was the war about? He finally asked, curious what had driven humanity to such a destructive war. No idea, when we were changed we truly went insane for a while. It was several centuries before some of us started to gain back control of ourselves. Some like Shukaku are still unable to think rationally, then he mumbled lowly, although to be fair, he had never been holding a full deck to begin with. So no one knows what caused this war. What about during the period that the Bijuu were raging the world? What happened during that time? We tore up this world even more than the human war had. If you had a map of the world before the Great War and the raging of the tailed beast occurred and compared it to today's world, you would see small similarities, but for the most part, continents were reformed, oceans have shifted, and entire mountains and islands have disappeared. Even more, the energy blast that was created tore the boundaries between the realities, and that is why your kind now can form contracts with summoned creatures. What other effects were caused from that backlash of energy? Kyubi stared off into space for a while, before speaking softly. Humanity was altered itself. The energy waves started a genetic alteration in your kind, which took a few centuries to show up. It eventually led to your species being able to manipulate chakra. You started being able to carry reserves of chakra that humans had never before had and learned to manipulate it inside as well as outside of your body. Those that developed the ability began to breed with each other, creating what eventually came to be known as the clans of your world. Eventually these clans started to develop what your kind now calls bloodlines. Bloodlines? Like what Sasuke has? Naruto asked in eagerness. Some developed to aid them in surviving the chaos the world had begun, like that clan, the Hyugas, those eyes were developed to allow them to see danger and see the chakra that exists in all living creatures. Some developed abilities to fight the creatures that were roaming the world for the first 1,000 years, like that white-haired boy you fought all those years ago, like that one who could turn his bones into weapons and pull them from his body. Some, like the Senju and Uchiha clans, they developed their abilities due to their exposure to me and my kin. The Bijuu. Naruto looked up in shock. Nani? Naruto, Naruto-kun. The voices kept uttering his name. Over and over, in such silky tones, drawing it out. It made him feel decadent in a way he never had before. The darkness around him kept him from seeing who was there, but the soft touch of hands would occasionally reach out and graze him. Hair, that was soft and silky and of varying lengths, would slide against him in the oddest places, causing shivers of excitement. He knew he should be worried. He was unable to move, as if bound to the ground he lay upon. But it was not ground, it was too soft, yet did not feel like any bed he had slept upon before. Such softness that lay beneath him, feeling almost like silk or satin, and his body sunk into it. The darkness should have been disturbing, but it only added to the calm that filled his body. The voices sounded familiar, but he couldn't tell who they were. Some of the voices sounded female, some almost sounded male to his ears, but all seductive, enticing and calling to him. Nails, fingers, and hair kept running the length of his body, making his skin feel hypersensitive. This feeling, what was it? Deep in a dark corner, two red eyes gleamed. Teeth flashed in what could only be called a sadistic grin. A deep voice murmured out, "Yes, my Naruto, dream." Buzz 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 buzz. Naruto's head shot up and he was shocked into wakefulness. A moment of disorientation took him before he realized that he was in his room and his boxer shorts felt uncomfortably tight. Damn it. He shouted, running to his bathroom to take care of the problem. He stood over his toilet and gripped himself, shocked that only a few strokes brought him to completion. Why did this keep happening? It hadn't before. God, he hoped he wasn't turning into a pervert, and if he was he blamed the fact that all his senseis were perverts. Turning back towards his room he rested his body on his bed once more to fall asleep. Naruto-kun, please more, why won't you touch me back? Naru, let me touch you. Naruto, don't you want me like I want you? The voices were becoming more insistent. He didn't know how to respond, he could only feel their slight touches as his body responded. These feelings, they were so new to him and he wanted to touch back, but he didn't know what to do. And his body felt so heavy, like it just wanted to be taken care of. He gasped as a tongue slid along his throat, so soft, he wondered who these people were. Wahahaha, a rough voice laughed maniacally, deep in the darkness. Soon, you will give in. A loud knocking at the door, in a vicious pattern, stirred him from his sleep. Damn it, Naruto, get up already, you're going to be late for training. Sakura's voice shocked him to wakefulness. Sakura-chan, his voice murmured. Suddenly noticing the problem he was having, he screamed out. I'm up. I'll meet you at the bridge. As he rushed into the bathroom again, he prayed to the gods that she wouldn't wait. The walls of his apartment were thin, and he could barely hold back the moan as he dragged his hand along his length in an attempt to find completion. As he released into the toilet, he knew he needed to take a shower to clear his head. Geez, Naruto, what's been up with you in the past few weeks? I mean, you constantly look tired and yet you keep oversleeping. Sakura stated to him when he arrived at the bridge, luckily before their lazy sensei showed up. At Sakura's words, Sai looked at him closely and also noticed a slight haggardness to his appearance. Yes, Dickless, you're looking a little hag-like. As a sign of his tiredness, Naruto didn't rise to the bait, instead yawning, he put his arms on the bridge to lean against as he tried to wake up. Just weird dreams, having trouble sleep. No big. He muttered in response. Sai and Sakura exchanged a look. Over the past few weeks, Naruto had been acting a little off, they didn't know how to describe it, but they were starting to worry. Hello team. Kakashi said as he poofed in. Then to his utter shock no one screamed, you're late. Guess I have to stop for a bit, it would be dangerous to be distracted on a mission. The voice uttered as it listened to the assignment Naruto had received. That was okay, now he had time to plan out the next few dreams and make them more vivid. A soft laugh, it helped that now he knew just how many desired the Gaki. Oh yes, he had seen the lust in their eyes that the boy hadn't recognized even as he wore that horrendous orange outfit. The desire they had while peeking when he would partially strip to train. The hands were touching with a stronger grip, a perfect complement to the soft grazing of hair along his body. But there were so many, they touched everywhere and the hands never fought the others. So many, so much feeling, it was getting to be too much. Occasionally he thought he caught glimpses of hair and eyes. Purple, brown, black, green and blue, and sometime he thought he saw the Hyuga clan wide eyes. But that couldn't be possible. The hair was long and soft in many shades of blonde, brown and purple. The shorter softer hair in brown, black, white and he almost thought pink. But that made no sense. Who were these people and why did they hide from his eyes while worshipping his body? Their voices became huskier as they became bolder in their touches. His body was drawn so tight trying to respond, unsure if it wanted to dominate or be dominated by them. Suddenly his eyes shot open wide at a particularly bold touch and could have sworn he saw red eyes spinning in a hypnotic way. More than two as well, but how could that be? Naru, damn it. He screamed as he awoke, just shy of fulfillment. He got up to head once again to his bathroom. This time just as he touched himself he released. The dreams were getting more vivid and it disturbed him. It was getting harder to suppress them while he was awake, as if they wanted to tease his waking thoughts. As he relaxed in the shower he thought back to the last few moments of the dream and then snorted. Damn, if I am dreaming about the team, I really am gonna consider that I need therapy for my supposed obsession over the bastard. He tried to blank it all out as he let the water rush his body and wake him fully. Trying to ignore how sensitive his skin was to the water. The red eyes glowed in amusement. Wahaha, but which Sharingan eyes or eye are you dreaming about? I wouldn't torture you so if you would just admit you need. Perhaps it was time to push the dreams just a touch harder. Yes, he would make the next dream much more visual and what happened earlier would make it even easier. Who knew the pervert could be actually helpful? The day before, brat. A voice called out. Naruto turned around to see Jiraiya heading towards him. He stopped and waited for his sensei, curious as to what the old fool wanted. He rarely chased after him like this, unless it was damn not again. What do you want, Hero Sennin? He asked, hopeful that he was wrong. I have the final copy of the last Ichi I wrote, could you read it to make sure it's really ready for final print? The old hermit asked with a leer on his face, holding out a manuscript for the Naruto. Why me? He asked petulantly. During his training time with the Toad Hermit, he had often baited chapters on his last book for the old man, and it seemed that the book had been a better bestseller than any but the very first Ichi book issued. Brat. Jiraiya scolded, swatting the boy in the head, respect you elders. Besides you baited the last, I just thought you would want final approval on this as well. But that the old man walked off, leaving behind a sulking boy. Naruto. The voice was much more insistent. Naru. Naruto-kun, Naruto. The voices were almost chanting as they touched. Some with soft gentle hands, others adding harder caresses. So many hands, so many people, and he couldn't recognize them. They teased at his mind that he knew who they were, but why couldn't he concentrate? Oh yeah, cause they were all over his body. He was tightening, his gut burning. Come for me, Naruto-kun. A few voices echoed together, and he swore he felt tongues in places never touched before, and ugh. He moaned as he awoke. After a moment, he felt the moisture in his boxers and groaned. What the hell was going on? He had been having these dreams for almost a month now, and each one was more daring than the rest. Worse, when he awoke, he wasn't sure who had been in his dream, nor why. He got up and headed to his bathroom to take a shower. As he waited for the water to heat, he looked into the mirror and was shocked at how flushed and yet tired he looked. As if he wasn't really sleeping at all. Why, after all these years and traveling with the super pervert, was his libido finally awakening? And why like this? Naruto walked out of the bathroom heading towards his closet when something caught his eye. He walked over to where he had left Jiraiya's book the night before and picked it up. He remembered how he had finished it before going to sleep the night before. Damn, I am so not reading his crap before bed again, maybe that is why that dream was so vivid last night. He muttered before throwing the book away and heading back to the closet to dress. Red eyes closed in frustration and a head banged into the ground it was laying on in frustration. For the love of it, stopped and then tilted its head to the side. A truly evil grin, with large sharp teeth showing a maniacal expression, appeared. Of course, subtle never works on him, we just have to up the dreams and push thoughts into his waking moments. Soon you will give in to your base desires. Repression only lasts so long, my dear Naruto. Laughter echoed in the dark room and the boy shivered for a moment as an evil feeling struck him. But he shrugged it off and continued to dress. His hands were sweating and he was beyond nervous. He looked at the seal in front of him and thought on all that had happened over the past few years. He wondered how it had reached this point. How did it go from brief conversations at the beginning to taking advice on occasion and to finally altering the seal, which could possibly allow Kyubi to control him? Yet it seemed more right than anything else he had ever done in his life. It was about the trust they had built up over the years. Trust. Who would believe him if he was to say the one person he trusted the most in this world was the demon who attacked his village 16 years ago and was the root cause of all his anguish? Yet that is what this came down to. It wasn't there in the beginning. It had more been about two souls who had no one else, driven together out of a need to survive. With small conversations in which the usual hatred and raging had been dimmed, as if they both had realized they had no one else in the world except each other. Survival could form the strongest bonds, and strangely their survival was dependent on each other. He could not live anymore without Kyubi in him. His body had adapted and now required small amounts of demonic chakra to be in his system. Kyubi needed him whole and safe in order to continue to exist. He was not a fool, Kyubi was the reason he had survived his harsh life. True, his life would have been different if the attack and subsequent sealing hadn't taken place. But he couldn't picture a life or this world without him being Jinchuriki. Strange, he thought, I hate the word, but it describes me exactly. A human sacrifice for power, Jinchuriki. He hadn't noticed that the trust was there at first, small and almost non-existent, but forming in such a way that it was becoming the strongest bond he had with any person in his life. The first time he suspected it was there was when they had played a small prank on Itachi. He knew without a doubt it was there was when they had rescued Gaara. Most thought the rage he had shown to be his own, but it had also been the Kyuubi's. He had felt the demon's rage that some pathetic humans thought they could control the great beast by pulling them from their host and sealing them away. He had felt the rage that another human would kill another in an attempt to get what light inside, and the rage that they planned to do it to the two of them. In actuality, it was because of Kyubi that Gaara was alive, though no one knew. Kyubi had known why the old woman, Chiyo's jutsu, wasn't working. It wasn't just because she didn't have enough chakra, she didn't have the right type. Gaara was Jinchuriki, a body that had become dependent on having demonic chakra in it. When he had fed chakra to Chiyo, he knew she would die, not because of the jutsu, but because the chakra he fed her had been specifically laced with demonic chakra. Kyubi had laced with his own to kickstart Gaara's body in a specific way and to fulfill a specific purpose. The purpose was twofold. First, his chakra laced with Kyubi's would repair the damage to Gaara's chakra coils, rebuilding them, as Kyubi rebuilt his own when he overused Kyubi's chakra. So that it would require less demonic chakra, so that Gaara could survive on the small traces of Shukaku's chakra that remained in his system. Second, to fortify the chakra left by the Ichibi, to guarantee that it would never leave Gaara's body, making him able to live for a long time, and to maintain the ability to use sand that Gaara had. While this had been going on, Kyubi had ordered him to go through a connection he formed to allow him to find Gaara's soul. He had pulled it back. Their shared past and the tricks Kyubi had taught him about how all life was connected had allowed him to go through his own pain to get to Gaara, who was stuck between moving on and staying behind. He had taken the child Gaara's hand and pulled him back to living, just as Kyuubi's chakra completed its purpose and faded from the Tsunade's body. That act of kindness that Kyuubi had done, that served the beast no purpose, had made him realize that they did have a connection. Kyuubi had saved his friend because of guilt that he knew this could happen one day to the both of them. He had not lied when later they had talked and he had confirmed that he trusted Kyuubi. Trust did exist between them. It was shortly after that he had noticed the changes Kyuubi's had been making on his body. He had stayed silent pretending ignorance of what the beast was doing, but he knew. Kyuubi's chakra had altered his own. His own chakra was now capable of the same regenerative capabilities, though at a much slower rate. He had also sensed small pockets of Kyuubi's chakra lying between his coils and his tenketsu that were permanently a part of his body. They seemed to be hidden reserves that if activated would release bits of demonic chakra into his system if ever the main body of demonic chakra was gone. He also sensed a small store of odd chakra in his heart and brain chakra coils, which he knew would probably release if he was killed. He knew that the big furball had done it so that if by chance he was caught and Kyuubi was extracted, he could be resurrected. That was why, when Kyuubi suggested combining their senses, he had agreed. The fox had created a way for him to survive the loss of Kyuubi. He could pay him back by allowing him to experience the world he no longer was a part of. Taking a calming breath, looking into Kyuubi's eyes, which watched him silently, asking nothing, he moved forward. Let's start the final alteration of the seal, allowing you and I to speak without coming to the seal. Naruto woke and stayed still, wondering how his day would go. He had the next few days off and was unsure if he should even leave his apartment. At least till he knew that he could control having someone talking in his head. Turning to look at the clock, he noted that it was a few hours after sunrise. He stayed silent, unsure if Kyuubi was even awake. Stretching, he crawled out of bed, moved to his bathroom to see to his morning routine. Grabbing the milk bottle, he went onto his balcony to look at the Hokage mountain. You know, I always wondered why you like watching the monument so much. The voice in his head surprised him, and he started for a moment. I hate to say this, but this will definitely take time getting used to. He answered. He knew he was avoiding answering the question, but he wasn't sure how to answer that. That is why we did this right before your few days off. There was a brief pause, and the next words lacked the humor of the last statement. Do you not answer because you don't wish to tell me, or is it because you don't know how to explain? I am not sure how to explain. Ever since I was a child, looking at the monument seemed to ease my mind and gave me hope. I have no idea why. When I am upset, sitting on the Yadame's head makes me feel safe and cared for. When I am pondering things, sitting on Sadame's head makes me feel like he is helping me sort my thoughts. I sit on Bachan's head for when I just want peace. Kyuubi was silent, taking the words in. I wonder why when I know you hate them as much as you love and admire them. Naruto was silent as he thought about it. I understand that the old man was trying to protect me as best he could. I honestly think he regretted he couldn't do more, and I know it pained him to always lie to me. As for Yadame, I sometimes feel that my hate outweighs my admiration for him, but I know that if I was in his place, I would have done the same. I just wished he had thought beyond the ceiling, you know. As for Bachan, she worries about me too much, and I think she is lying about stuff for a few different reasons. Like what? Naruto moved inside to start breakfast as he tried to organize his thoughts. Sometimes I think she is waiting for others to tell me stuff that she feels they should have done, others I think she wants to make sure I am safe, so I do not suffer as her little brother and fiancé did. Other times I think she has been too fooled by this mask I wear and doesn't think I would understand. He sensed Kyuubi's pondering of the words and realized that this talking to him was even more natural than when he was in the seal. Now to make sure he always responded silently in his head, that he maintained awareness around him so people didn't know he was lost in thought and, sure we can't go out around the village. And stop jumping every time Kyuubi started a conversation. He sighed, this would definitely take getting used to. But why not? I mean it wouldn't be that hard to change, would it? Naruto resisted the urge to roll his eyes as it might draw attention since he was walking around by himself. They had taken to walking around the village after Kyuubi had started pestering him enough that he realized that banging his head on his kitchen table only hurt him. Now, Kyuubi had taken to waxing eloquently on why he felt that Naruto should stop wearing so much orange on missions. Especially when he realized that all of Naruto's downtime clothes had slim to no orange in it but were in more normal shades with very little bright colors. In fact, Naruto liked natural colors and usually walked around in black, blue and tan pants short with white, gray and black shirts. He had few formal clothes and wouldn't wear them unless needed. It went against the personality that he had created. Besides, his hair and natural coloring were bright enough to stand alone. Because to change unexpectedly would confuse everyone around me, it would take a major event to allow me to change. Besides, it confuses everyone. He answered. Suddenly noticing where he was, he got an incredible urge to cause mischief. Nah, furball, do you want to mess around with powerful people? He asked, mirth evident in his voice. A sudden tenseness told him Kyubi was looking around and was confused. What do you mean? Well, you remember how I mentioned that I was raised by Root for a bit? And how we talked about Danzo and the elders? Hearing a rumble of agreement from Kyubi, he continued. There is a Root entrance nearby. How do you feel about playing word games? He projected images and ideas to Kyubi, and although the fox was worried, he agreed. What fox wouldn't want to mess with a power-mad patriot? The sewers were very similar to the tunnels in his mind, and as he walked and Kyubi looked through his eyes, he knew that the similarities were intriguing the fox. Months before, when he had mentioned Danzo to the fox, they had watched all those earlier memories, and now was the time to remind the old coot that he remembered him. Even better, make him believe he never forgot like they wanted him to. He stopped in front of a wall, seeing the small scratches. He reached out and touched them, just as he and the fox sensed a chakra signature nearby. Touching them, he remained calm as the Naanbu stood behind him and placed a kunai at his throat. Why are you here? The voice asked in that unemotional tone. He grinned and lowered his hand slowly as he sensed another chakra signature heading towards him. Just visiting my childhood haunts. Why, is it a problem? He asked, letting amusement enter his voice. He could sense the confusion in the No officer behind him, and he quickly grabbed the kunai-wielding hand and pulled it away to turn and look at the masked man. He grinned widely at the man behind him, just as two more people appeared from the tunnel to the right side of him. He noted briefly the member and Danzo himself. That is the boy, sigh. Be careful. Naruto-kun, what brings you here? Danzo's voice was as passive as always. He always played himself as less than he was. Naruto was impressed that his visit had brought Danzo himself. He felt honored. Not much, just missed this place, thought I would take a walk around. He answered nonchalantly, grinning his ever-present happy smile. His grin remained the same as he saw Sai tense and Danzo's eye narrowed ever so slightly. I wasn't aware you remembered this place. Danzo finally said. He motioned for the Nagar to leave and then turned, expecting Naruto to follow. Naruto stepped in line next to Danzo and walked with him towards Na headquarters. Well, I am sure how you know that in life or death situations, or when Kyubi tries to convince me to use his powers, I wind up in the seal. He started, enjoying the sudden tension in Danzo, subtle though it was. Would you believe me if I tell you that my mindscape appears to be based off these very tunnels, almost a complete duplicate? It seems you had more of an impact on my childhood than anyone knew. As Danzo led him into the main entry to Na, he looked at the large room with a gated entry. He could hear Kyubi take a deep breath in shock. It was almost identical to the Kyubi's gated entrance. Danzo looked at him with one narrowed eye and then motioned for the gate to open. As they stepped though into the main area, which contained all the pipes that maintained Konoha, that appeared like a large root system. Ah, yes, this is the place. If I remember, an Anbu member who was also Na used to teach me how to throw shuriken and kunai right there. He pointed off to a corner. We need to talk later. The image just became clearer and I believe it was the older Uchiha. Ah, and this is good, I didn't react to you talking. He turned and looked at Sai directly, hidden as he was by his mask. So Sai, want catch a movie later? He almost laughed as Danzo finally showed his shock and Sai removed his mask, watching him with narrow eyes. Suddenly he smiled his fake smile. Of course, Naruto-kun. Naruto shook his head, then sighing loudly he looked at Danzo with disappointment. Oh no, why don't you teach them how to fake emotions properly? That is so false that in anyone else, it would set them off. Well, no one learned as well as you did, Naruto-kun, although mostly because we couldn't completely erase your emotions. Kyubi and all. Danzo said. Naruto realized that Danzo was very curious as to what he was up to. So why are you really here? Careful. Perhaps, after that first mission with Sai, I realized that I should probably remind you, Jason and Abasan, that I do remember my childhood. I am also very disappointed in the three of you. He smiled at the way Sai seemed to step back and how Danzo tensed. I mean, I remember reading those scrolls you gave me, coming down here to get away from the stress of living in the village till I was 8. How you three used to sneak me candy all the time. Time for the killing blow. How you all fought amongst yourself to have the most influence with me. You're implying something, and I can't figure out what. Danzo said harshly. Ah, Naruto tilted his head slightly, his eyes half-lidded. Why are you three so busy tearing the village apart in your power games? Have you forgotten that the village needs you three to work with the Hokage in times of strife? Akatsuki, Orochimaru, Sasuke, so much that needs to be sorted, and you three offer no aid to Tsunade Bachan. Why? I mean, we know I am too young to be Hokage, she is the best option for now, why are you blocking her? I do not understand, Naruto-kun, Danzo said softly. Guess you don't. He muttered softly. Throw out that you feel that the four of them were all so busy trying to accomplish the same thing and it was a waste. What things? Protecting you? I guess it's just, Tsunade is constantly trying to protect me from you guys, not realizing that you all are trying to protect me from the danger. He air quoted for effect, it's such a mess, and you all are just trying to protect me from the wrong people. He shook his head in amusement. I mean surely Sai told you of my fight with Orochimaru, had Yamato Taicho not interfered and Sakura-chan not run at me, I probably could have injured him enough for capture. Naruto grinned cheekily, I didn't lose control as much as they thought, and Sakura-chan a smart shinobi would know not to run towards a Jinchuriki coated in a Biju's chakra, especially one as corrosive as Kyuubi's. As for Sasuke, he couldn't kill me when he had the chance at the Valley of the End, he won't now. He is too weak-willed. Naruto tilted his head again showing his confusion as to whether that was the right word. Danzo watched him with a steady gaze and then nodded slightly, understanding what Naruto was implying. So Sai, meet me later and we will catch a flick. He said turning to leave. Ajasan, tell Abasan and Jason I said hello, as I can't do that around Bachan. Waving a hand behind his head, he walked confidently out of the Naanbu headquarters. Naruto-kun. Danzo's voice was sharp and he turned to look at him inquisitively, you play a dangerous game. He smiled a huge fox grin, only if I didn't have the power to back myself. I have seen the reports, Jiraiya did not make you as strong as he should, you could come to me for more training. Danzo offered, playing his hand. Naruto laughed and walked over to a seal that was on the wall. He bit his finger and made some alterations and then reactivated it. He could hear Danzo and Sai take a deep breath as the seal's strength increased from his slight changes. He taught me more than he knows. Thanks to the pickpocketing you had your men teach me. He grinned again and turned to leave. Especially since he tended to leave a lot to drink, whore and meet his contacts. I learned more than he knows and more than you can guess. Glance back at him. Naruto glanced back at him and felt Kyuubi send a chakra burst to his eyes, making them red and slitted for a moment before they finally turned and left. He could hear Sai just barely as they walked away. Well he is more than he appears, a small dose of confusion in his voice. Ah, always was Danzo's reply, soft and filled with something. He looked at the Gaki who was sitting against the gate. They were watching memories and trying to see if they could sort out what the Elder Council, Danzo and Tsunade were plotting amongst themselves. The event that had taken place earlier, followed by a very simplistic movie event with an boy Sai, was telling. He felt a strong sense of approval well in him and pride. He had made this boy. Not the four old people who cared for him in his childhood. Not the school teacher nor the Jonin instructor. Not even the pervert or the new Hokage. No, he, Kyubi no Imp, had made the boy today who had played word games with a dangerous person. And the boy had come out on top. Kyuubi stretched one of his tails out of the bars to wrap around the boy and wondered. Is this what it means to be proud of a child you raised? Perhaps there was hope for humanity. But the boy had proven he could hide their communication in a dangerous testing ground now to test him by annoying the shit out of him when he starts training again. Oh yes, that would be fun, because the best way to help him maintain this balance was by testing. Yeah, that's what it would be. He snickered. Trying to ignore the narrow look in Naruto's eyes as he looked at him. Naruto stared at the great beast in front of him. It had been almost 3 months ago the two of them had both agreed to work together to stop Jiraiya's training in Kyuubi's chakra. In the past months they had begun to talk more and Kyuubi had often offered help in training. Knowledge about better ways to use his body, which Naruto had found out, was altered slightly from Kyuubi's chakra constantly flowing through it. Advice on chakra control, as it seems Kyuubi was a beast that primarily used raw chakra, which required even greater control than jutsus. Kyuubi had even been advising Naruto on how to go about snagging Jiraiya's scrolls on ceiling, saying that the knowledge would be more useful than any jutsu he learned. It had helped Naruto grow as a shinobi and had also brought the two closer together. Kyuubi was someone who was willing to talk to him. True, they mostly enjoyed talking since both had no one else. But unlike all his other teachers, Kyuubi was patient in one regard. When Naruto didn't understand as he had trouble grasping a concept or even a meaning of a word, Kyuubi explained. A small part of Naruto had wondered if in another lifetime, Kyuubi would have made an excellent teacher to children, for a fearsome beast who supposedly went on rampages, killing people. He was surprisingly patient. But this. Kyuubi laid in front of him, a serious look on his face, his tail lightly swaying. Naruto was unsure of what to say. He had come into the seal, looking for conversation, and instead been sized up. Kyuubi had begun to speak. He had told Naruto that he was impressed with how he was handling the training. That he found his growth to be acceptable and that Kyuubi was almost proud of him and at least considered him less offensive a vessel for he the great Kyubi no Imp in a roundabout way. Naruto was not someone used to praise, in fact he had almost never received any in all his years that he could remember. As such, was it any surprise that Naruto reacted badly by saying what the hell, since when did you get all mushy? Kyuubi was offended and Naruto was embarrassed. 2. Fashion amongst the girls. Naruto looked up at the cage of Kyubi, he was unsure how to take this. After he had changed back into the original orange jumpsuit he had worn for the past 14 years, he had gone to see Kyubi. The furball had taken one look at the orange outfit and snarled. Both of them had preferred the black shinobi pants and blue top, as it has been serious and intimidating all at once. But the fangirls, even now Naruto, could not hold back the shudders of fear and horror. He pushed those thoughts to the back of his mind to focus on Kyubi again. I mean, it would be perfect. A nice russet orange would look good with your coloring, and it would blend in with the forest. Don't give me that look, most foxes are orange russet, not a red russet, and they are incredibly hard animals to find in forest. Look at my own fur, it is not a true red, but an orange red. It would also emphasize your power for those who know you are my vessel. I mean, I am the great demon Kitsune, a powerful and terrible fire demon. If you wore red, it would only look good on you if it was a blood red, and that would not suit either of us, you know I'm right. I mean, blood red would not represent chaos, fire and rage, blood red represents death, madness and power. If you wore a nice russet orange that would so much better since you draw too much attention in normal colors and you seem to be terrified of those women chasing you. But the orange jumpsuit in neon orange, it has to go. It is an eyesore, not to mention a horrible reflection on me. Luckily the only other Biju that has seen you was the sand boy, Shukaku's host, and since they are both screwed in the head, perhaps no one will know that my container wore that tacky thing. Naruto listened as Kyubi kept going on, before finally smirking. He raised his hands and subtly shifted his form into a version of his Woroko no Jutsu. A 16-17-year-old girl with a body most women would kill for, long golden hair and pigtails, barely fitting in the neon orange eyesore, stood in front of the Kyubi cage now. Naru-chan stood twirling a lock of hair around her fingers listening to the Kyubi, nodding occasionally. So, why are you in that form? Kyubi was staring down at him now, a confused tilt to his head. Well, Ni-chan, since you were gabbing about fashion I thought I should be a girl, cause you know that's what women do, fashion talk. Naru-chan tilted her head to the side. I mean, what guy worries about fashion? 3. Stop with the girl talk already. His eye kept twitching. He knew that both Sakura and Kakashi had seen it and were curious. Luckily they had not asked. Sai was in the rearguard position, or he also would have noticed and end up making some horrible remark that would have driven Naruto past his endurance. His eye kept twitching. Why, you asked? Simple, it was the annoying voice in his head. He fought the urge to roll his eyes as the voice kept yammering on. I mean, if you think about it, of the two Uchihas the older brother is obviously the better choice. I mean, take for instance the stances they take when preparing to fight. The older one, Itachi, he stands with a sense of power and dark foreboding of the horrors to come. The cloak, whether closed or open, always billows dramatically. His features hide his purpose, his eyes whirling the Sharingan imposingly. That hair of his pulled back and is always immaculate, with the two locks on either side of his face bringing attention to his looks. Naruto's foot touched down on the tree and he pushed off to pull ahead of Sakura, trying to control the urge to scream in aggravation. But the younger one, that Sasuke you keep chasing after. I mean really, he poses in that horrible fashioned outfit. He looks like a gay pirate or something, especially with a rope that is holding his clothes up in a butt bow. I mean, come on, is his trying to draw attention to the fact that his hair sticks out like a duck's butt? Oh, and have you seen what happens when he is agitated or angry? Unlike that brother of his who you can sense no reaction to, which I happen to think is excellent hiding of his emotions. He bit into his lip, trying not to draw blood, as he watched Kakashi move slightly ahead of him. And to you sliding all the time. Hey, have you noticed that when he uses the Chidori, especially when in a current, it's because he has lost control of his anger. But what's worse, his hair gets so puffy and ruffled. Just like a chicken. I mean, couldn't you just die? How embarrassing, why if his family was alive to see how gay he was, wow, they would just die in shame. How he plans to avenge them while bring Disho. We'll take a rest here. Kakashi said, stopping down on the ground below. Naruto jumped down to join him. He nodded to Sakura who started pulling out food for everyone as Sai moved into the clearance. Naruto, you okay? Naruto looked to Kakashi and nodded, just a small headache, let me rest for a moment. He asked, moving to sit against a tree. Ignoring everyone around him, he slid down a tree to relax, closing his eyes. Ignoring Kyubi's voice, he willed himself into the mindscape where the seal was located. Walking down the hallway, still trying to ignore the furball as he kept waxing on about the differences between Itachi and Sasuke, he took a deep breath before moving to stand in front of the gates. Boy, Kyubi. He called out, interrupting a small speech about Itachi has the feel of a tragic hero, where Sasuke permeated the scent of a jealous child throwing a tantrum. You want something, Gaki? Kyubi asked with a small smirk in his voice. It was at this point Naruto realized that Kyubi was trying to piss him off. For whatever reason he didn't know, but two could play at this game. In case you haven't noticed, I am on a mission, can you save the gossip fest till later? Seeing the Kyuubi's eyes narrowed, he smirked and let out a remark he knew would piss the demon off. I mean really, are you sure you're not female? You gossip like one, hell you almost sound like a fangirl comparing two hot men. At Kyuubi's pissed look, Naruto knew the rest of the mission would be either quiet or hellish from the vengeance the demon would unleash. Hey Kyuubi. Naruto began, sitting in front of the large gates. As he saw the giant fox roll his head to the side and open one great eye to look at him, he continued. Can we talk more about the Biju? Staring at the boy, Kyuubi pondered how he felt and finally raised his head up and let out a small sigh. Ah, I guess so, what did we talk about so far? Naruto settled more comfortably into the damp floor as he tilted his head back, eyes squinted. You spoke of the world before you became Biju and how for several centuries you were all driven insane. You started to tell me about how humanity was altered and how the Uchiha and Senju developed abilities to attack your kind. Naruto looked wide-eyed at Kyuubi. That was when you stopped and said it was enough for now. Kyuubi pondered this, should he tell the boy more about the bloodlines? No, that was another story and he was not ready to speak about those blasted Uchiha and Senju. So what could he tell him about? Alright Gaki, I will tell you about each of the 9. What do you mean? Well, eventually you may have to fight another Jinchuriki and knowing the abilities and personality of the creature sealed within, that should aid you. Or, if that group of nins has collected any of us, they may use the Biju to attack you to capture me. Naruto smiled and leaned forward to listen. Now remember brat, same rules as before. He waited for Naruto to nod and began. The first Biju is Shukaku, or the Ichibi as human came to refer to the tailed beast. Let not the amount of tails lead you to assume that is how Biju are ranked. Shukaku may have the weakest amount of chakra, but his abilities are dangerous. He became a tanuki because of his base personality, as he was a playful and extravagant desert god. Not to mention probably the most perverted of us, did you see the gourd he makes his vessel carries? Talk about a walking sex joke. Before being sealed into the wind shrine that was located in the Great Nara Desert, Shukaku was a desert god who would drive people insane or to their death through the sandstorms he would create. He controlled the storm's winds, using it to control the sand. As such, the Tanuki himself is partially insane just as those he tortures. From what I saw of your memories of the fight with his vessel, he is still half off his rocker. He sounds like a drunken buffoon, but he is a good fighter. What, why is Gaara so strong when sealed within humans? Although one of the weakest, Shukaku's natural abilities made these Jinchuriki the deadliest. Safe in the human body, the Ichibi manipulates the sand to guarantee his host's safety, letting them fight for him. By granting his vessel the same abilities, control of sand by use of wind, they become a twofold fighter. It is a dangerous defense and offense. The second Biju is Nekomata, the Nibi. Strangely it was always a two-tailed cat, personal pet avatar of the Shinigami. Before it became a Biju, in its avatar form, it had control of the dead, as it would aid its master in collecting souls. The Nekomata feeds on the spirits of the dead and can summon them to fight. Before being turned into a Biju, the cat had another form of black angel-like wings and a third eye on its forehead that consumes spirits. As an avatar its chakra ranked as second weakest, but it is a dangerous Biju. Its strength being its control of the dead, you know the saying dead men tell no secrets. Not true round the Nibi, its strength comes from its powers granted by its master the Shinigami. No one messes with the Shinigami, hell look what it did to me. I got sealed inside you. Nekomata, upon becoming a Biju, started to fight the others to gain power. It once joined forces with Haku to fight against the great Kyubi. Never thought I would see a dog and a cat get along. They were defeated and near destruction from Kyubi when the Shinigami itself arrived to rescue the two-tailed cat. I wonder if that is why Shinigami-sama aided in my sealing. Must make a note, never piss off the pet of a death god who loves his putty tat. During the time of the raging Biju, Nekomata made its home in the Forest of Death. No, not the one in Konoha. This one was a real Forest of the Dead, located north of what uses to be a city called Hokkaido. Now that I think about it, I have no idea what powers it grants its vessel. I would assume either ability over the dead or perhaps knowledge on rituals to control the dead. Damn thing was into some weird shit voodoo witches. Also, as it was originally a two-tailed cat, it has power over fire. The third Biju is Tsunade, the Tsunade, who upon becoming a Biju, took up its avatar form of a giant sea turtle of monstrous abilities. It lives along the oceans off the shorelines, where it would rise from the depths to breathe fresh air. When it would arise, storms would erupt and oceans would rage. It liked to torment ships at sea, seeing them as a source of food. Although third weakest in chakra, the giant sea turtle was once a powerful fighter. Of course, if you think about it, it only fought in its home territory in the water, and only a fool would attack a water beast in the water. The Sanbi was a water god, and as such controls currents and can create sea storms. I assume that was the ability it would give its host at some point. An occurrence occurred with a beast and its vessel, and it broke free, but at a great price. The great beast is now a mindless creature that can barely use its power, haunting the shores around water country and mist. The water shrine that Tsunade was once sealed upon is buried deep beneath the ocean to the east. The fourth Biju is the Yonbi, known as Soku. Before becoming a Biju, this beast was once two separate entities, a minor god of marital ritual. Upon being mutated by the great power unleashed in that horrible war, the male was turned into a rooster and the female into a snake. As the two began to attack each other, their powers that had once bound them merged them into a horrible beast. Now a half-rooster, half-snake beast that reeks of poisonous and toxin, withers everything it touches. See, this is why you should be careful who you bind your life to. Never know if you're going to be mutated into a single beast that just you. Due to its toxic nature, the beast tends to hibernate inside volcanoes, and when it snores, boom goes the volcano. This beast is the fourth weakest in chakra and also one of the weakest fighters, as it is an unbalanced creature. But the snake form on the bottom and the rooster half on top, it crawls almost like a scorpion, and its lowness in only protected by the venom, toxin and poison that it controls. Really, must I say more? Just be careful of poison and try to take small shallow breaths around it or its host. The fifth Biju is the nature god Haku, who took upon the form of a giant dog with 5 tails. As it was once sealed into a tree-like shrine, where it would collect energy from the 5 elemental gods to merge together to be released into the world, so does it now control those elements. Each tail of this dog controls one of the 5 elements: fire, wind, lightning, earth and water. Haku, besides being an elemental god, is known for being a minor illusion god and distorts the world when fighting. With illusions and his ability to control the elements, Haku makes a much stronger fighter, though only the 5th strongest of the Biju. Tell you, he is also a little power mad. I mean, he convinced a giant cat that he didn't want to chase it, but instead joined forces to try and destroy me. The Gobi was nearly destroyed after the attack on the Kyuubi, which led to it going into hibernation, to be awoken by humans who eventually sealed it. Serves it right, trying to attack me. The 6th Biju, or Rakubi, is the thunder god Raiju, who was transformed into a giant weasel with 6 tails. I always said he was a sneaky little 4th strongest in chakra. It is equally dangerous in fighting. When fighting in close quarters, Raiju uses his sharp, and I mean sharp, claws and shoots lightning from its tails, mouth, claws, hell, probably out of its ass as well. It once was the companion on the lightning god Raiden, who upon his death bequeathed its lightning ability to this thunder god. By use of lightning, it also has control of fire that the lightning creates. When beginning to fight, it releases electricity into the air to make its attacks from at a moment's notice. I just realized those Uchiha brats chazzing and running from you. Didn't the youngest try to use a lightning attack against the older, who happens to be a weasel as well? Haha, no wonder he got beat down. What cough. The 7th Biju is Kaku, once an earth god, now the Shichibi. In the form of a badger with 7 tails, it is quite cunning and stealthy warrior, although the smallest of us in form. Most of the time, Kaku prefers to hunt from underground by crawling underneath its prey and crumbling the very earth. By crumbling the ground its prey is standing upon, the prey falls literally into its mouth and is eaten. That is what I call smart hunting. When above ground, Kaku can transform himself into any creature by use of clay. As such, although the 3rd highest in chakra, it is only the 7th strongest in strength. Before being sealed, it wandered the earth, crawling beneath the ground, seeking its shrine. The 8th Biju is the Ushi-Oni, or Hachibi. The only one of the Biju that was a demon before being transformed. It was a lesser demon that was feeding upon humans by the seashore, that when caught in the blast became incredibly strong. 2nd strongest in chakra and 2nd strongest as a fighter, it absorbed the most chakra as it was evil itself and resonated best with it. I actually prefer him of the entire Biju. As a demon, it gained control of its power easily and returned to rational, for a demon, thinking. It is quite excellent at seeing through illusions and tends to copy other Biju's attacks, especially pure chakra manipulation, as the Kyubi is known to use. What? I really got along with him as a lesser demon by birth. It would be able to possess any human it is trapped in easily, unless the human barters within. Remember, if a real demon attacks, just offer to make a deal. They never refuse a deal in hopes of winning your life, soul, money. Naruto sat looking at Kyubi, his face torn between awe and disgust at the remarks Kyubi had thrown in. Suddenly he frowned. What about you? Kyubi stared off into space. That is another story. Perhaps next time I am in the mood, I will explain about myself and how we came to be sealed and my hatred of your village. They are all intertwined and I am not ready to discuss that, not with you or anyone else. Kyubi looked away before putting his head back on his front paws to sleep. Not yet. Naruto looked at the Kyubi and wondered what happened between Konoha and the Kyubi. There was pain in his eyes when he spoke just then. Sighing, he stood and willed himself back to consciousness. The hands were getting to him. He had no idea how much longer he would last. Oh gods, one of the hands reached out to grab him and, damn you. Don't wake up now. Growled an aggravated voice. Naruto awoke gasping for air. Breathing heavily, he could feel his arousal bursting to the point of no return. Groaning, he jumped up to run to the shower. Damn it, just when he thought those stupid dreams had stopped. No, they had to come back worse than before. As he stood in the shower washing his body to remove the sweat he acquired during the night, he tried to figure out what was setting these dreams off. Nothing stood out in his mind. He had finished editing Iro Seninen's book over a month ago and had refused to help him research his next book. Hell, he hadn't even performed the Woroko no Jutsu in a while. He had been focusing on his training and hadn't even seen Sakura-chan in a week. So what was causing this? Worse, who the hell was that in his dream? Naruto focused on Sai, whom he was sparring with. Sai had decided to train with him today, and the two had finally decided on a taijutsu match only. Although not his specialty, Sai was a strong fighter and challenged Naruto, especially as he was fighting one-on-one, no clones allowed. He was humbled that the quasi-taijutsu user was holding his own against Naruto, who had worked so hard to master his taijutsu that he could hold his own against Neji and Lee. But, in Naruto's defense, Sai was from Root. Danzo made sure his drones were fully trained in all fields before determining if they had special abilities. For Sai, it was developing the ink ninjutsu, which he hadn't been allowed to develop till his other skills were mastered. Kuzo, I keep forgetting his basics were long mastered before mine. I have got to stop underestimating my opponents. Focusing once again on Sai, he watched the boy for the slightest movement that would allow him to read his attacks. As he sensed a tightening in Sai's stomach, made visible by the half-shirt he wore, he focused on them looking for a clue as to where the next attack was coming from. Or that was the plan. His eyes suddenly sharpened and he was looking at the muscles closer, watching as Sai's sweat glistened off his pale porcelain skin, his mouth watered. As images from his dreams accosted him. He felt an incredible urge to lick that sweat off his bam. Naruto looked up at Sai, who was looking at him with slight concern. Naruto-kun, are you alright? I thought you saw that hit coming, but it seems you spaced out. Sai's hollow tone filtered to Naruto's ears, which had a slight ringing to them. Groaning at the realization of what happened. Naruto put his hands to his eyes, blocking all light. Damn it, Sai, why the hell do you wear that crap? You dress like a friggin' girl. He shouted out. Sitting up, he glanced to see Sai looking at him with slight curiosity. Dickless, have you finally turned into a girl and cannot stop looking at my manly body? Blushing, Naruto snarled and got up, screw you, Sai. Walking off, his ears caught Sai's last words. Did I do something wrong? Wahahaha echoed throughout the darkness. Boy, Naruto, what's up? Naruto turned from his raiment to see Ino walking towards him. The blonde kunoichi was without Sakura, her team, as he smiled and waved to her. Hey Ino, what are you doing? He called. Walking over to him, Ino sat down. Can I get a diet ramen? She asked before turning to Naruto. Not much, have some time off from the shop and no missions today. Haven't seen you around for a bit, still training. He nodded while slurping his ramen. Hi, just finished a spar with friggin' Sai, I swear that guy needs to stop dressing like a Tenryu hooker. He felt the slap upside his head, causing him to choke on his ramen. Oi, what was that for? You shouldn't say stuff like that about Sai, he's your teammate, beside I like his clothes. He looked sexy. For a moment he thought he saw hearts in her eyes. Naruto turned to glare at her, only to be caught by the side of her arm reaching back to tighten her hair in its ponytail. Long arms reaching back, pushing her chest forward, a well-developed chest at that, practically begging to be touched. Her bangs fell into her face, caressing her lips. Gotta go. He shrieked, jumping up and throwing some money on the counter before running away. What was that? He could hear Ino saying in confusion. That's what he wanted to know. Wahahaha echoed throughout the darkness. HN wasn't even trying that time. Naruto-kun, dickless, why did you run away? Didn't you know we dress that way to draw your attention? That we want you to desire us? The two voices spoke in unison. Hands wandered around his flesh, touching, grabbing his hands and pulling them up, placing them on hot burning flesh. Reflexively he grabbed the flesh beneath his hands to hear a gasp of pleasure. No fair, why do you two get to play? Another voice echoed in the dark. Oh, there is more than enough Naruto to go around. Those words were whispered in his ears before teeth nipped at the tip. Ah, plenty of Naruto to go around, whispered another voice above his head. He looked up to see. Okay, now the brat is pissing me off. I work hard on designing these dreams, would you enjoy one to the finish? Frustration oozed from the voice in the darkness. Lying in his bed with hands behind his head, Naruto tried to focus on the dream he just had. This time he had awoken before it went too far, but also what had awoken him was worrisome. He had felt a familiar presence that felt not a part of the dream, but almost like an observer. Maybe someone is sending me these dreams. But what would they get out of them? Well, his training was being slightly affected by them, but really, who sent wet dreams to take you off your game? Rolling to his side, Naruto went to sleep ignoring the nagging feeling that he knew the presence. Kakashi watched Naruto out of the corner of his eye, pretending to read his book. He had been hearing strange reports from the boy's friends of unusually odd behavior, even for Naruto. "Senpai, what's on your mind?" He heard Tenzu speaking softly from beside him. Kakashi looked again to Naruto and figured he was far enough away to not hear the conversation. "Have you heard about his recent weird behavior?" "You mean what Sakura and the girl from the other team Ino, was it, mentioned?" Tenzu answered as he watched the Jinchuriki in front of him practice his wind chakra. Sai said that he ran from a spar in a bad mood muttering about improper clothes. Ino said that he squealed a goodbye and took off just as she joined him for a meal. Also, Sakura mentioned a few weeks ago that he was having trouble sleeping. "I wonder what is going on his head," Kakashi mused. "Has Hokage-sama mentioned anything? She thinks it might be some other change that hasn't happened yet." "What about those, has she figured out what they are?" Tenzu asked in curiosity. A few months prior he and Kakashi had noticed Naruto having a sudden increase in his alertness, which would have made an Anbu jealous. Between the Sharingan and Tenzu's Myukutin abilities, they had sensed an odd level of chakra, Kyuubi's and the boys, in certain areas of Naruto's body. They had taken him to Tsunade, who had begun test his body and chakra to figure out what was happening. She thinks it's similar to what happened to the Inuzuka clan. They over generations have developed heightened senses that are triggered by bonding to their companions. It started from the sharing of the chakra between pairs and over generations has led to their alterations. Tsunade-sama believes that Naruto is being changed the same way, but not slowly over generations, but in months. "Really?" Tenzu said, turning sharply to look at Kakashi. "What brought that about?" "Kyuubi's chakra is constantly being exposed to Naruto at incredibly levels. Especially since the seal was weakened in his training with Jiraiya. He appears to be absorbing the excess chakra from the fox, perhaps because it is awake and trying to actively overload the seal." Kakashi glanced at Naruto again. She believes that it is altering his body by chance. Not just with his increased senses, but she has seen signs that his own chakra has begun to try and mimic what the Kyuubi's chakra does to accelerate his healing, which is strangely less damaging. Does she think it will be inheritable? Possibly, won't know until he has kids. If it is, it might be classed as a new bloodline. Well, at least he won't have a problem finding someone to have his kids. Tenzu said, leering slightly at the boy training not far from him. "Oh, I wish it was hotter today, that boy has a sinful body, and I know senpai agrees." "Tenzu?" Kakashi hissed viciously. "What? Don't play innocent, senpai. You've looked also and enjoyed it when he strips to practice. That is one hot tight body." Tenzu's leer grew. "Wonder if he goes both ways. He's too young to be ogling. Please, he is turning 16 soon, and since when don't you like to just watch?" Tenzu wiggled his eyebrows at Kakashi. "I wonder what fun watching you must have had watching them as genin." "Please." Naruto wore a puffy neon orange outfit that covered his whole body. Kakashi said quietly. "Besides, he was like an annoying little brother. As if you barely had anything to do with him once you left Anbu. If his mother or father had survived I would buy that, but otherwise you never saw him as kin." Tenzu turned back to watching. "It will be nice to see him breed though, he has good genes. I saw a picture of his mother, Uzumaki Kushina. A soft whistle, nice tight body, long red hair. He looks a lot like her. Very hot little package." "Damn it, Tenzu." Further away, Naruto fought a blush. "Damn it, stop talking about me, and how did Kakashi know my parents and why has no one told me?" Suddenly Naruto froze before he forced himself to move again. "OMG, are they checking me out?" "Hehehe, yes they are." Red eyes closed and white teeth glinted as laughter echoed through the darkness. Strong calloused hands glided along his inner thighs. Soft lips slid along his stomach. He felt spiked hair brushing his chin. Such a tight ass. Asp. Naruto woke, glancing around the room. Damn it. Why won't these dreams stop? The soft sigh, you know, he takes dance to a whole new level. Deep in the solar mindscape of one Uzumaki Naruto, a giant fearsome Biju known as Kyubi no Imp, the most terrifying creature to torment the elemental nations, was currently in a position that would ruin his image forever. What was he doing, you ask? Laughing so hard he was hyperventilating, tears streaming from his evil glowing red eyes. How did this happen? Well, after Naruto had his little tete-a-tete with Danzo in the northeast headquarters, Kyubi had decided he needed to research these memories. Naruto had from his earlier years en route and his interaction as a child with the Sandaime Hokage and his two crony friends. To say that what he found when he went looking was not what he was expecting would be an understatement. Currently he was watching a memory of Naruto at age 1½ years old during one of his stays away from Northeast in the care of the Hokage. Shall we see what has made the nine-tailed demon fix lose his dignity? Though you would never ask. The Northeast Anbu was never as grateful as he was at this moment when he got to hand the child off to his counterpart, Sandaime's personal Anbu. After the hellish few months that Northeast had had, since the boy had learned to walk, no forget that the boy went from crawling straight to running, it would be a relief to have the child out of their hands for a month. As he turned to leave, even with all the emotional control that this officer had received from Danzo-sama, he couldn't help the smirk that had formed underneath his mask. See, only about a half hour ago the little blonde child had gotten into the kitchen and had eaten about a 1/4 pound of raw sugar. Having seen this and reported it to Danzo-sama, it was universally decided that the boy should be taken to the Hokage's tower a day early. That will teach the Hokage to derail Danzo-sama's plans. Let him deal with a sugar high Jinchuriki. The Anbu in the Inu mask looked at the child who stared at him innocently and couldn't shake the feeling that the Northeast peon who was leaving was laughing at him. Doogie. The soft voice came to him. Looking down, two wide innocent blue eyes looked at him, a slight sparkle appearing in his left eye. Normally this would make someone go "oh," but this Anbu had known the child's father. He barely controlled the shudder from the chill of doom he felt. "And what is this, Inu-san?" The voice of the old man asked, looking up from his desk where he was meeting with his old teammates, Kaharu and Himaru. Both turned to see an Anbu officer walking in with a small child in black shorts and white t-shirt in his arms. The child was giggling softly. "Danzo-sama sent Naru-chan early, sir." The Inu answered, quickly handing the child to Kaharu who held her hands out eagerly, eager to be free of the squirming brat. As Kaharu made cooing noises, Himaru narrowed his eyes. "That is rare, Saratobi. Why would Danzo send him early, especially when today is the last day before the grass delegation leaves?" Putting his pipe down, after being glared at by Kaharu, he responded. "Who knows, but I am glad to have him sooner." Down. Down. Naruto started chanting, wiggling in the old woman's arms. "Naru-chan, have you started to talk?" Himaru asked looking at the little boy. "Down." Naruto shouted this time. Just as Kaharu was about to put him down, Naruto wiggled out of her arms and jumped to the floor and took off running. Right before he made it out the door, Inu grabbed him and picked him up by the seat of his pants. The boy giggled as if he just found a new fun game to play, or perhaps one he has played before. The Anbu thought, his earlier fear returning. "Naru-chan, you can run." The two old men shared a look of horror as they realized that the boy was fully mobile, while Kaharu was busy moving to take the boy back from Inu in her excitement. "Kaharu, why don't we let Inu take the boy for a bit, we need to finish up here and meet with the grass delegation. We can catch up with Naru-chan later. We do have him for a whole month." Nodding, Kaharu handed the boy back to the teenage Anbu officer who was staring at the giggling, wiggling child whose eyes were getting wider and wilder looking with every moment. Bowing, he took the boy out of the room, looking at him, he really felt as if this afternoon was going to be horrid. So as you can see, these trade agreements will make it. Everyone turned to look outside the conference room to the sounds of muted shrieks, screams and bangs. "Forgive me for asking Hokage-sama, but is something going on outside we should be concerned about?" the grass delegate asked. In the preceding moments the noises had been getting louder and louder and everyone was curious as to what was happening outside. Signaling to one of his Anbu guards, they moved forward to open the door to see what was happening outside. Shortly after the door opened, a small blur shot into the room running around it. The people in the room could only watch in complete shock as a small blonde toddler ran naked through the room laughing hysterically. The only item that could be considered clothes on the child was a single sandal that was on his little left foot. It was a testament to the child's sure-footedness that he wasn't tripping from running with only one shoe. Unable to react, the whole room continued to watch as the child ran around the table naked, only to see him suddenly turn and shoot under the table as an Inu mask Anbu ran into the room. The Anbu officer was in a disheveled appearance, and even with his mask, you could feel the stress coming off of him. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the laughing child shot out from under the desk, trying to escape the room. The Anbu officer jumped to grab the child only to land on his face, missing him by a few inches. "Sorry, Hokage-sama," the Anbu said, getting up before running out of the room to chase after the cheerful little blonde boy. Dead silence reigned in the room, followed by a few snickers. Suddenly the Hokage cleared his throat. "Tora, since we now know what is happening outside, perhaps you should close the door." Waiting till the Anbu collected himself and closed the door, he turned to the group at the table. "Well, it seems my godson who is visiting me this month is playing. Perhaps we should just ignore the noises from outside." Everyone laughed, and the Hyuga and Uchiha clan leaders shared an amused look. Finally the Uchiha turned to the Hokage and said, "It appears, Hokage-sama, that someone has given the boy too much sugar." Amaru, Kaharu and Saratobi froze, shared a look and then in unison hissed, "Danzo." Despite the fact that the old man walked with a cane, lacked an arm and an eye, his gait was downright cheerful as he walked through the Hokage tower. Word had reached him that his little blonde gaki had streaked the entire tower during his current sugar high and had run most of the tower staff ragged trying to catch him. He snorted a small laugh, stopped to make sure no one heard him, and continued on in a more sedate walk, trying to control the urge to whistle a jaunty tune. Reaching the Hokage's office, he met the guard who was staring at him with suppressed kai and waited to be announced. Danzo-sama is here to see you. The guard called into the office. Send him in. Came the soft reply. Danzo walked in and used every bit of his training to not laugh out loud. Sarutobi was sitting at his desk, a look of sheer exhaustion on his face. Hamaru in a chair watching Danzo with angry eyes, and Kaharu was on the couch holding a sleeping innocent Naruto. What truly amused him were two Anbu officers who looked completely wrecked on the floor watching the child, their bodies tense to jump up at any moment. Danzo. Sarutobi's voice quiet yet strong, what possessed you to send Naruto-kun here early and hyped up on sugar? Danzo put on his most affronted expression. I had no idea when I sent him over, Hokage-sama. I had mentioned this morning to Naruto-kun that he was going to visit you tomorrow, and he was so happy I thought to send him early. It wasn't till recently that I found out he had gotten into the kitchen and eaten a 1/4 pound of sugar. I am truly sorry, but it was only for one day, my Anbu has to deal with all the time, and he is a very energetic boy. Why do you think I asked if we could start his training? Everyone froze as Naruto made a small sound and twitch in his sleep. Fear in everyone. When he settled down, Sarutobi and Hamaru looked at the old warhawk. We shall see how the rest of the month goes. If he is as energetic as you claim, perhaps we should allow him some small taijutsu training. Just for exercise and to keep him out of trouble. Danzo chuckled in his head, Operation Sugar success. Kyubi was staring at the images in front of him intently. Something about that particular Anbu was ticking at his senses. Where do we know her from? He thought to himself. Oh well, at least now he knew where the perverted nursery rhyme came from. Kaharu walked through the hallways to meet up with Danzo. Together they would meet up with Hamaru and Sarutobi to discuss the possibility of placing Naruto-kun into an apartment while attending the academy. She fought to keep the smirk off her face. Danzo was not happy to realize that his particular training was not suited to the boy, but it was for the best. Naruto had to be in the public eye, not hidden away in Anbu. Seeing him waiting for her up ahead, she tilted her head in his direction before they moved forward. She made no attempts to talk as years of working with him allowed her to sense he was still angered at the decisions made. She was unsure why. Naruto was barely 5 years old. The earliest he would be allowed to attend the academy was next year. Well, at least today should be calm. I hear the Gaki is playing quietly with his Anbu guards. Danzo finally said into the silence. Ah. Kaharu murmured. Yesterday had been quite busy, and as such Naruto was rather passive from all the excitement. Yet, even as those words were murmured, she couldn't help but remember the old saying, be careful what you wish for. The Karasu masked Anbu could only stare in horror at the boy on the ground, talking with the Hibi masked Anbu. A small part of his mind kept mentioning that this would be amusing as hell, but the rest was too horrified at what was happening. He shared a glance with the Tora and Inu masked Anbu, who seemed to share his concern and humor. This will not end well. So we are agreed. Sarutobi said as the four walked down the hallway of the top level of the tower. Kaharu and Hamaru nodded in agreement, Danzo after a moment also nodded as well. So if this is done, how about we go tell Naruto-kun? Kaharu asked. As the others nodded and walked on, Kaharu smiled softly. She enjoyed having Naruto-kun around, as he filled a small part of her that wanted grandchildren. Unfortunately all her children were grown up and only one was in a relationship, perhaps she might get grandchildren of her own someday. As they got closer to Naruto's playroom in the tower, they heard the sounds of a child humming. Smiling, all three watched as she opened the door to look inside. 3 Anbu were stationed around the room and one sat on the floor playing toy ninjas with Naruto, who was humming a soft children's rhyme. Somehow none of the elders who had just walked in the room felt the tension that invaded the 3 standing male Anbu. This team was picked as Naruto's main guard unit as they were some of the youngest Anbu in service and Sarutobi thought they would be best for guarding a child. Naruto-kun, what are you humming? Kaharu asked, moving in to kneel next to the boy. The song. The boy said, not looking up, so engrossed in his toys. What song? She asked, smiling. One Hibi-chan taught me. He said, looking up. Oh, will you sing it for us? She asked, smiling, as the other 6 in the room watched the 3 on the floor. Okay. Naruto looked up and sang, not realizing what would happen when they heard his song. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but whips and chains excite me. So tie me up and throw me down and show me that you like me. 1. Everyone froze in the room. A soft guilty laugh escaped the Hibi masked ninja. Suddenly the 4 elders unfroze and began to glare at the Kunoichi, who stood slowly and backed away. Enko 4 voices growled out. While the little blonde boy watched in innocence, no one noticed that 2 pair of eyes watched in hidden amusement. Behind the Inu mask, a mismatched pair of eyes glimmered with hidden amusement, watching the humor unfold. A soft glance to the side showed the Karasu mask was also watching, a pair of Sharingan eyes capturing the moment forever. Kyubi glared at the newest image in front of him. At last he knew who to make pay. 13 years of eating that salted crap and he finally knew who to make suffer for the indignity. Did his vessel eat healthy? No. Did his vessel eat delicious food? No. His vessel ate ramen, and it is this fool's fault. Naruto held the hand and toddled along with the man beside him. He had been told to stay with a strange man who chewed on the metal stick. Not wanting to get in trouble like he did the other day, Naruto had been well behaved for a 3-year-old. When his tummy had grumbled, the man had looked at him and asked if he was hungry. "Bui hungry?" he had replied. The man had smiled and asked what he wanted to eat, and Naruto couldn't think of anything. The man had decided to take him out to eat at a place he liked to go to. He held on tightly to the hand as they walked through the village. The child couldn't help but look at all the people. Strangely, they looked at him funny. He didn't know what it was, but he didn't like it. It seemed almost like they all knew about the trouble he caused yesterday and were mad at him. "Here we are, Gaki," the man said, coming to stop in front of a stand. Naruto took a sniff and his mouth watered at the smell coming from the place in front of him. Something about the smell called to him. He tugged on the hand he was holding and waited till he could see his face. "What is it, Gaki? Wood?" he asked, hoping that he was going to get that heavenly smell. "Yeah, Gaki. Welcome to the best ramen stand in Konoha. Ichikara ramen." But that the man picked the boy up and walked into the stand to sit at the bar. He placed the boy on the stool and made some adjustments to the seat so he could see the counter. A young girl was sitting on the end of the counter watching them. "Hi," she chirped. "Did you want to order something?" "Hello, Am-chan. Helping your father out today?" the metal chewing man asked. Grabbing the stuff Naruto had grabbed away from him, he continued on. "Naru-chan and I are here for lunch. Do you have a small bowl of a good ramen for a toddler for him and a seafood ramen for me?" "Sure, Genma-san," the girl said. She jumped down on the inside of the ramen stand and ran to the back where her father was. A few moments later she returned and climbed back onto the counter. The 8-year-old girl watched the little boy leaning on the counter try and grab at all the chopsticks. Sighing, she moved over to be closer to him. "Hey kid, want to play a bit with me while dad makes your lunch?" she asked. She caught her breath as the cutest little boy she had ever seen looked at her. He had bright yellow hair, tan skin and the widest blue eyes that just seemed to look right into her. His chubby cheeks had 3 whisker-like marks. An urge to grab the boy and hug him filled her. "Thanks, Am-chan. Naru-chan can be a bit of a troublemaker," Genma said, sighing softly. The brat was always so energetic. Even after the incident years ago that had led to him being banned from eating sweets except on special occasions. "Hello, Naru-chan." Am cooed out at the toddler. "You can call me Ni-chan," she said. "Ni-chan?" the toddler asked wide-eyed. "Hi," Am said with a wide grin. She caught her breath again as the widest, happiest grin in the world was directed at her. "Here we go, 1 seafood ramen and 1 miso ramen," a man said, moving forward with 2 bowls. Placing the bowls down, the man looked closely at the boy, causing Genma to tense momentarily. "Well, if isn't Uzumaki Naruto. Are you old enough for ramen?" he asked after a moment with a wide smile. Staring at the bowl in front of him, Naruto turned to give a wide grin to the man and shouted out, "I'm a big boy now." "Yes you are," he man said with a smile before ruffling the boy's hair and motioning to Am to help the boy with his food. Just as he turned away, he heard the words that would come to be his favorite expression from the boy for years to come. "More please." Turning back around, he found Genma-san and his daughter Am staring shocked at the little boy who just managed to eat a small bowl in less than a minute. Laughing aloud, he walked back to the counter. "Aren't you just like your daddy?" he said, ruffling his hair and taking the empty bowl. "I'll go get you a bigger bowl." "Inu, where is Naru-chan?" the Sandame asked. Coughing slightly, the Anbu answered. "I believe Genma-san took him to get lunch down in the village. Senpai is following behind with a few other Anbu." Tsurutobi nodded and then froze. Putting his pen down, he looked up at the young Anbu in front of him. "Inu, correct me if I am wrong, but hasn't Genma taken to eating at the ramen place lately?" "No, you are correct, sir. I tried to warn him, but he said, and I quote, just because his father was obsessed with ramen doesn't mean he will be."